I don't want to stop from doing it.
Great.
No, I think that sounds great.
Absolutely.
I'm trying, I am getting out. I've been like,
So it'll be about 4 months, and we'll work something out, sort of a recovery issue. So, if you bring the lawyer to sign off, and he would get the very specific. If someone else does, then we have to work out some sort of.
Okay, absolutely.
I did one of the addresses and I can just start studying this.
Kidding. So, the site.
I'm gonna take it again.
Ben's gonna teach the class.
That's not so bad, is it?
Either just leaving the work.
Well, thank you for your time, Miss Stacy.
All right, let's get this party started. Everybody here? All right, that's fine. We can let people roll in. So, if anybody doesn't know me, I'm Stacy Pearden, and I'm teaching how to negotiate today. So my style of discussion is pretty much that, discussion. I don't really think you need me to read the manual to you. I don't think that that's the value that you get out of people that are here to share some knowledge. Move this. So if it's okay with you guys, we can kind of, follow along with the flow and everything. But I think it might be more valuable for you guys to get like real life examples, in my opinion, of negotiating and just like in general. My opinion of negotiating is that's what we get paid for. That's our number one job. And if somebody asks me why they should hire me, if it's like an on-the-spot type question, my number one answer is always because I'm the best negotiator. So if you're ever on the spot with a seller, why should I hire you? Not because I'm the best, not because I have the best marketing, not because I have, I work for the largest company. It's always because I'm the best negotiator. That's where I actually make my commission. That's what I believe anyway. Because honestly, the deal is where it's make it or break it, right? And I'll tell you right now, there are some horrible negotiators in real estate, like really bad. So I think this is a great class. There is a video, we'll watch the video, but honestly, we're just gonna go along kind of talking, taking like the main header, and then we can kind of discuss and have some dialogue and stuff like that. So if it's okay, just an open dialogue. Did you guys do like your mission and all that kind of stuff that you were supposed to do beforehand? So do you normally go over any of that beginning stuff, or you just kind of know that you had to do it?
We know what we have to do.
Yeah, we know.
Okay. Did you have any questions about like what you're supposed to do for that? All of your contacts.
One of the things they've got is, by the way, I'm new in the business 3 weeks.
Okay,
Is
congrats.
previewing houses. So I went to a couple of open houses this weekend. I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to be getting out of that. Just general knowledge about houses. Anything more specific?
By attending open houses?
Yeah, and previewing houses.
Well, I don't know exactly the reason that they say you're supposed to do it for this particular class, but I'll tell you from a standpoint of my opinion, you need to become knowledgeable of the market in general. You need to know floor plans. You need to know kind of like what you get for your money in every city. You need to know neighborhoods. maybe just overhearing questions that people will ask in general in these open houses. You can actually see how some of the agents are holding their houses open. Just really like getting your feet wet as far as housing goes and being familiar with the market in general, because once you do obtain a client, how are you going to advise them if you're not familiar with all the neighborhoods? And I mean, it takes a while, so you're just kind of like learning and getting, generally familiar with real estate, like I said, looking for issues with houses, just kind of absorbing it all, getting to know, kind of like a non-shadowing shadowing, right? That's my opinion. Did you guys have any other opinions on that?
That was the biggest thing when I first started out, is I was told to go preview the houses, not just open houses, but go preview vacant houses. It doesn't take long. Our mission was 10 a week, okay? Just because then you get an idea of what the market's looking like and what those different types of houses are going for. Like when we did brokers opens, usually it was because
When you're talking about who are you talking about?
other realtors would do brokers opens, and as realtors we would go around, because it was like sitting on the market.
Are you talking about it in a different company?
I was with KW in Alaska.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like there was this one house that was 217, completely remodeled inside, had a new septic, and it sat. And so the realtor, her name was Amanda, she did a broker's open, and she wanted to get the opinions of other realtors. Why is it sitting? Why? Because it was in a great location and brand new septic and stuff. So, it helps you get knowledge for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So before we get into do you guys normally talk about all this kind of stuff, like how many contacts, all that jazz, or do you just go into the material? I haven't been in an Ignite class
Just go
in a
into
while.
it.
You did?
Just go into it.
Just go into it. Okay, cool. Okay, here we go. Negotiation. Hey, Al, I think they want us to watch that video at the very beginning. Might as well just get that run with that, and then we can start. Get some good material to start talking about. Hello.
Yeah, while I was doing that, what we used to do years ago at Century 21, just like you were talking about doing in Alaska, it was like a broker tour.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the agents in the office, or several agents in the office, we would have like 5 or 6 properties to go to.
Right.
And then we would have our sheets and we could kind of just critique what we thought about the house and pricing and things of that nature. And that was a really good thing about being able to get price reductions.
Right.
Because here's my colleagues, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, showing us that what they feel that the property is worth and what's
See,
going
the
on.
thing about it is, in our area, you don't really do that anymore.
No, we
It's
don't.
really only done in boutique communities.
Yeah.
Very boutique. And then Women's Council of Realtors has one, and you might be able to get your property on their tour, but nobody really does that anymore around here, because first of all, there's just way too much inventory. There's just way too much stuff to do. Too busy to do it. I, for one, am not going to be doing it. And it's valuable, but there's other ways to get that now, and you just end up having all the realtors that don't do any business go to those things, and it's like, well, they're not selling any houses, then their opinion isn't going to be effective anyway. So
Thing in the past.
yeah, it's totally old school.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It was good for its time.
indeed.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Ready.
Keller Williams since 2006. 2014, we did about 200 transactions for
Started in the order.
Hi, I'm Josh Anderson, from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Keller Williams since 2006. 2014, we did about 200 transactions for about $60 million in volume. I grew up on a farm, so I've always seen my dad negotiating land and cows and horses, being the youngest of four, and trading and negotiating and others, all growing up. So I've kind of done it all the time. Some people are certainly gravitate toward it and are naturally better at it than others. But I think that negotiation can definitely be learned. I think there's a lot of skills that go into being a great negotiator. I think it's learning your client. Instead of kind of assuming that you know what's important to them, really asking a lot of questions and letting them tell you what they need or want, and then speaking to the other agent and finding out what's most important to their client. And there's some agents that just don't give any. When I have an agent that I'm dealing with that's very tight though, I just keep asking questions, and they give me information that they might not have otherwise given, whether it's a divorce or a death, or it's just they got relocated to some other city. And I think if you're really listening and being intentional and purposeful about listening, you'll find out exactly what's important to them or what they have to have. In certain situations, you have to be creative. We're always looking for that next little tip to help our clients out and win the deals. One of the techniques that we've used a lot that's worked well for us is the escalation clause. For example, if the property is listed at $250,000,
You can't do that here, by
we
the way.
might go in at $250,000 with strong
Our broker does
terms.
not allow it.
And in special stipulations, we might put in there that we're willing to beat the next best documented offer by $1,000 up to $263,000. And the best offer might be $261,000, so we end up getting it for $262,000. From a client standpoint, that you willing to have a real conversation. It's not us just being realtors for them, it's us consulting and advising and really telling them, if you really want this property, here's what you have to do to get it. Everybody's got a different way of how they negotiate. And networking with other Keller agents around the country, the more you hear, the more ideas you get. And then you end up gearing it towards you and what you think is going to work best for you and your clients. A lot of it comes down to experience, and I think the more deals you do, the more comfortable you get with it. If you step back from every transaction and learn something, you're going to get really good.
Cool, was that it? That's the only video?
That was it.
Okay, cool. So Josh Anderson is a really great agent. He's been around a while, so he gave a lot of good tips. That, like, watching that video makes me, almost want to, like, throw this book away, just because he's got so many good ideas just to discuss. And let's, like, go through, take a few minutes and go through. You know what, one thing I forgot to do. Let me just see a couple of people here. What are you really looking to get out of the negotiation class? You know, no matter where you're at in your career, what are you guys really looking to find out today? That way I'm going to write down and make sure we'll go over it, whether it's in your material or not. Holly?
I would say the confidence in negotiating, because I felt like as a newer agent going against an agent who's been in the business for a long time, sometimes I felt like I didn't have the same confidence that they did.
Okay. So how to gain confidence in
Yeah.
the negotiations?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of want to know, like, what things would you negotiate besides, like, the price of the house? What other things do you negotiate?
What terms?
Or like,
Or
what might come up that you'd have to negotiate that you might not think about?
everything. But yeah, no, we can definitely go over things besides price, pretty much.
Can you touch on occupancy?
All right, cool.
How to negotiate like a three-way transaction.
Like a domino?
I guess, like both boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, selling their house in order to buy another house. Like how to
We're selling 2 homes to buy 1.
Yeah, how to negotiate with a client who wants to list their house, but obviously, because they're thinking that you're gonna get paid off of this new house, a 3% commission,
with regards to like negotiating commission, yes.
Oh, okay, okay, cool. So that's not really negotiating a transaction. You're wanting a commission objection handle?
I guess.
Okay. I thought you were talking about, it's probably a good thing to touch on a domino transaction, right?
Right.
When you've got.
Yes, yeah. With regards to,
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
a condo, she has a townhouse.
Yep.
They're going to sell them and move into.
what is it called when they have a house that they need to sell? That-
Contingent?
Yes, yes. I'm just drawing a blank.
Okay.
In a multiple offer scenario, how do you get your offer to stand out? And maybe like she said over there, other things you can negotiate besides the price.
Concessions.
Okay. Anybody else?
How do you get like when your client is like dead set on something and the other client who walks up, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's say they're dead set on a price and the other client is trying to negotiate, like how do you, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? That's
Your
how we
client's
do it.
dead set on something,
Yeah, like
or the
they're
other
dead
person?
set. Like, either one, like they're dead set on
How to create a win.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Hi, Nikki. Hi. How are you? Morning. Any other negotiation stuff that you might want to learn today?
Whatever you got, boss.
All right. Rock on. Okay. So these are all good questions. And a lot of this stuff is, like in here, it's going to be generalizations, okay? Just general fields of negotiations. It's not going to be like this nitty-gritty kind of stuff. But honestly, you need the nitty-gritty kind of stuff. And some of it, you're only going to be able to learn by doing it. Trial and error. You just have to be in the middle of it to really, like, I learn things all the time. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that one before. You know, oh geez. But the good thing is you can take components of your past experiences and say, this worked with this one that I did. You know, maybe you can apply the same principle to this negotiation. Or asking other people, asking other agents that, you know, getting their opinions before you just make the decision for your client. Because you could honestly end up costing them a lot of money. You could cost them the home. You could cost them their home getting sold. There's so many little, like, there's very, very delicate. Every little aspect of the deal is very delicate, and anything could sink it really quickly. So, you know, just maybe getting opinions without taking too long about, you know, hey, what would you do in this situation? Don't be afraid to ask.
Sometimes I find it hard, like when you're working for the seller and the buyer is like, you're going back and forth with their agent where they're, oh, you can't do anymore. When do you really have to stand your ground and say, you know, we're done negotiating, you know, but without having that fear that you're gonna lose that deal.
Okay, so how to be a good negotiator without jeopardizing the deal. Okay.
Like, when is enough negotiating? When is enough enough? Because like sometimes they just keep pushing for more and more and more. I've had, you know, where you'll give them this and then they want something else, and then they want something else.
Got it.
When do you have to, and how do you say
Okay.
no?
Perfect. All right, so we'll definitely make sure to go over all of the things that you guys wanted to do. Okay, so we're discussing common points, price and terms. And if you want to follow along, you can. I think we're going to be somewhere in like page 9 and There we go, common points of negotiation. So, we can kind of go over your question about what things besides price to negotiate. So I think really you need to get in a mindset. A lot of agents that I find, they feel like, okay, so you're hired by your client. You're either hired by the seller or you're hired by the buyer, right? So in general, it doesn't matter if you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent. You're hired by the client. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you when you're hired to represent a client? In terms of negotiating.
You have to get their best interest.
Fiduciary.
Trust.
Looking out for their best interest.
Their best interest. Gotcha. Okay, so everybody knows you're gonna put the client's needs in front of yours, right? We're not thinking of us or our paychecks. That seems pretty obvious. But beyond that, you're representing their best interest. What are their best interests? Go a little bit deeper.
Getting them the best price.
The best
Getting
value.
the best buyer.
Okay, so that's the road. It might be a little unconventional that I want you to veer away from a little bit when it comes to negotiations. I set the expectations with my clients that it's not always about getting your buyer the lowest price on the house, getting your seller the highest price on the house. Sometimes it's getting your buyer the house they want, no matter what, right? No matter what. Does it mean you're going to get them the lowest price? No, not all the time. It's not always about the best price. It's not always about the highest price when you're a listing agent. You might have two offers. You might have a cash offer that's waiving their inspection for $200,000 and a conventional offer for $205,000 that has a 10-day inspection period and a 45-day close. This is probably the best offer. That doesn't mean it's the highest price. You have to look at all the aspects of it and get out of your mind that you are still representing their best interest, even if you don't get them the highest price, even if you don't give them the lowest price. Their best interest is not always tied to price, right? It's getting them to their goal. If their goal is to buy that house, you're representing them by getting them that house. If their goal is to sell that house, you're representing their best interest by getting that house sold. It's not attached to every little term. So that's something that a lot of agents get tripped up on, and I think they end up cutting off their nose to spite their face because they're so dead set on lowest price or highest price or whatever it is. That's only one component of the entire transaction. You really have to look at everything, and sometimes it helps if you write down the main components of the offer, on a separate sheet, just so you can process it. When we have multiple offers, I always do a spreadsheet, just to make sure I've got all my bases covered, because it can get confusing if you've got multiple offers as a listing agent. I've confused offers before, and that's really not turned out well for me. So, dissecting every part of the transaction is probably a good idea, so that you can look at that and ask the questions like Josh was saying. So some of the great things that Josh was saying in that video that I really liked is you have to know your client. How do you get to know your client? Yeah, questions is huge. Having a proper consultation in the beginning is huge. That's how you're going to find out information. It's going to find out what's the most important to them. Hi, Chris.
Oh, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good to see you.
Welcome to this negotiation class. Not like you needed or anything.
Oh, no, I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. Mr. Negotiator over there. So we're talking about getting to know your client. You've got to have the initial consultation with them. Doing a kind of like meeting them at a house, showing them a home, and just starting a relationship from there. You're going to be like trying to play catch up from that point on. Having that buyer consultation or that listing consultation, the formal sit down and doing it your way, getting all the information, starting it out with, hey, if you had a crystal ball and this could play out perfectly for you, what would this situation look like? Well, what do you mean? Well, honestly, if you could just plan this out, it couldn't happen more perfectly. What would that look like for you? Timing, pricing, everything. And just let them lay out the scenario, the ultimate scenario for you. So you'll know in their mind what perfect looks like. And you'll be able to say, okay, this is important, this is important. Make your notes, make notes on all of your clients so you know up front. That's one way to get to know what's important to them before the negotiations even start to begin. Also, have you guys heard of like DISC testing? Personality profiling, communication styles. All of that is part of getting to know your client too. Has anybody not heard of DISC? Okay. DISC is a very basic personality profiling. It's DISC. You can go online and find a lot of information on it. And there's other, like, more deeper, like, have any of you taken the KPA for real estate? Okay, I mean, that's even like a deeper, like, personality profile that Keller Williams uses for hiring and stuff like that. But this is something that is, like, extremely useful. It helps you identify what type of client you're dealing with. And that's something that he was saying too. Knowing the client. Are you working with a high D personality? Somebody who they will have a lot of trust in you, right? But they don't want to hear you talk for hours and hours. They don't want you to run a million spreadsheets and numbers and stuff like that. They just want the important facts. And they trust you, but you better not let them down. But they're quick. They're very touchy-feely. They want to feel cared about a lot. The things that are going to be important to them are if it feels right, if the neighborhood feels right, all of that kind of stuff, right? That's Al. That's Chris.
Yes.
He's actually an ID. But C, those people are very true. They're committed. They're like, they don't take risks. They're very calculative. A lot of your engineers and stuff like that are C's. In fact, 70% of the world is a C. So if you really can't figure out what somebody is, just default to a C. And then S, very stable people. They like to feel safe and secure. So safety, you reassuring them that you have everything covered for them, that, that's how you want to communicate with those people. So really getting to dive into that DISC profiling will be a totally different class, but it's super helpful to know your client. So you have to know your client's style, communication, and what's important to them in general based on their styles in order to effectively negotiate with them.
You're going to get two of those. You're going to get two personalities in a lot of deals.
Yes, you are. So know how to play off both, right? So if let's say you have somebody that doesn't want to know the numbers, a high D, quick. And then you have somebody that's all about the numbers, engineer, you're going to have to provide both, right? Before you have that conversation on the phone, you're going to email the numbers over to the engineer person, and then you're going to say, after you review this, give me a call on conference call with your spouse, we're going to discuss this. And so now you've played into that person, and you're playing into this person because that person's had time to digest those. So yeah, you are gonna have both. And then you can also kind of see who takes the lead too, and play a little bit more towards that person's personality without letting the other person know that you are. So getting to know your client and recognizing what their personality is. You know, if you have a real high I, jamming down their throat is not going to be effective. If your client doesn't trust you to begin with, forget about negotiating with the other side, because now you don't even have your own client on your side, right? Okay. So what else did Josh say about this? Know your client, ask questions. What's most important to the client? Do the ultimate scenario. And you're going to revisit that when you get into the nitty-gritty negotiations. When you're getting their ultimate scenario, you're just getting in general how this is going to look for them. But it's good to know that, because let's say you have an offer, maybe it's not so great in price for your seller, but when you originally talked to them about their ultimate scenario, they kept talking about how they needed to be moved before the start of the school year because they didn't want to have to move their kid in the middle of the school year. And maybe this offer satisfies their timing, which was exactly what they talked about with their ultimate scenario. You can go back to that and say, hey, you remember when we first met, you told me this was really important to you in your ultimate scenario. Well, this offer, we got to tweak a few of the things, but the timing aspect is really good. So you can use that. Okay, so let's talk about other things besides price. I know I'm totally not following along here, so I hope KW isn't mad at me. Well, what they talk a lot about here is just roles in general. You've got a listing agent and a buyer's agent most of the time. I guess everybody's pretty much understanding that aspect, right? Okay. So price is one thing that's going to be on the docket with a buyer or a seller. Price is always going to be, if you can utilize data, is probably your best back that your best backing that you can have, which is why we run comps for our clients. So sometimes, like, the data doesn't really make sense. It doesn't match up to whatever you're dealing with, but it's going to help. Like, for example, if you have a buyer and you're making an offer on a home, let's say you're the only offer in, right? We're not in a multiple offer situation, because that maybe makes a different approach. But your client likes this house, you want to run comps for them. That is part of protecting their best interest, right? You got to at least, don't just throw them to the wolves and have them, the listing agent could be plucking a number from the sky. You don't know, there's no rules on how they've chosen that listing price. So you got to make sure, it might be a beautiful home, but you got to be somewhere in the ballpark, because it's really fun when you don't run comps. You get an accepted deal, and then the appraiser comes in and tells you the home is worth $30,000 less than what you offered. Now you've got a renegotiation, a potential that your client has just paid for an inspection and an appraisal on a property, so they're almost $1,000 deep already in this, right? And you had not checked the comps on the home going into it. It's not going to be fun, because they're going to come back and look at you and say, hey, you told me to write X dollars on this deal. You said, yeah, that sounds great. If you had at least reviewed the comps with them, you could say, if you have a low appraisal that comes in, well, an appraisal is a human's opinion of the price. This human happened to have a different opinion and may have been looking at some different comps than you were. You can at least, that you did your job. If you get a low appraisal and work from there, maybe dispute it, which never works, but at least you don't look like the untrained person at that point. You are protecting your interest by doing that. So you want to do comps. Some properties aren't easy to comp. Sometimes you're going to go over the comps because your client really, really wants this property and there's multiple offers, or really, really wants this property and the home's been on the market for 2 days and the seller's not going to budge. But at least you went over the comps with them. sometimes people realize they're paying more than what the comps say because they really, really want the home and it doesn't matter to them, but you need to go over that, right?
How often do appraisals come in low nowadays?
Not as much as before, but I mean, we just had one, didn't make sense. Sometimes there's all types of conspiracy out there, like it's the lender, you know, this ex-lender always has low appraisals or whatever. It's more of general knowledge of the area. When you're dealing with bigger banks, they have like a Rolodex of infinity number of appraisers, and it's just where you are in line, that appraiser gets assigned to it, it's automatic. You could have a guy from Brighton doing an appraisal on a Shelby Township home, where they're not totally hip to each sub and how they're different or better. So if you can get just kind of know how the lenders work in those situations. Like I work with a lender who has an appraiser pool. So that lender has 6 or 8 appraisers. They're round robin based on area. Yeah, they're not controlling which appraiser is getting that particular, appraisal because they have to stay in compliance. But you're not just like, it's not a crapshoot. Generally speaking, the appraiser that's going to accept that particular appraisal is going to be one that knows that area in their 6th, appraiser wheel. So I like using the correspondent lenders that have those appraiser pools because I at least feel like I have a better chance of getting somebody that kind of thinking like I am about the property.
Do you do any kind of package for the appraiser or something for your listing, something that would help give the right numbers for that?
I did it a lot when we were getting a big surge back in prices because, our market was going up quicker than our comps. If you had a comp that was 6 months old, our market had already surpassed that. So I had to, helpful things are getting comps in the last 90 days. Those are always going to hold more weight. And then if they did a bunch of repairs and updates and stuff, listing them with how much it costs them to do from open market costs. Like even if they remodel the bathroom themselves, put on there it costs them $15,000 for the bathroom as if they contracted it out. So listing that, if they put on a new roof and it was a 3D roof that cost 25 grand, at least put that on there so the appraiser knows this wasn't a $7,500 roof, something like that. Just because when they have that information, they can use like a percentage of those updates, towards the price. But I don't do packages all that much anymore unless I feel like we're gonna have an issue. And sometimes when I do them, I get burned anyways, because like the appraiser's like, oh, they're trying to prove that it's worth it. It must not be worth it. So I don't know. The jury's out there for me on really what to do.
I had one. It was in a rural area, and it was really hard to comp. And when I did comp it, I had a little hard time because they were set on what they wanted. Because they knew that they put so much money in this house, even though it was outdated, they were set, this is what we want. And I knew it wasn't going to price for that, and I told them it's not going to price for this, and they did not care. So I did go out to the appraiser, and I gave him comps that were 10 miles away. And he did use most of them, so it did comp for more than what I was hoping that it would, but it still didn't comp for what people put the offer in. And then my client was upset because they're like, well, they were going to pay that before it appraised, now they want less, and then there was problems with the inspection. It was constant negotiation. It was awful. It was just one thing after another.
Well,
it did go through.
That's one thing that is good to communicate to the clients that really finding your buyer is only the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. When you see an iceberg coming out of the ocean waters, you only see the tip. Like here, the iceberg's actually this big underneath there. So all the other stuff that comes after finding your buyer is what you get paid to do.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is learned over time, and over time, and over time. Just like, again, pulling this one out of the toolbox. This worked with the last one. Getting opinions until you've got enough built up where you have your toolbox filled, that you can actually say, hey, I know how to deal with this. So,
What if the toolbox is empty?
you gotta borrow somebody else's tools. Yeah.
My toolbox is empty.
Well, the good news is there's like 400 plus agents here, and we have a lot of tools. So you are in the right place if your toolbox is empty, that's for sure. Okay.
Do you ever suggest getting appraisals before you list?
Yes, so if you have one of those really weird, awkward ones where you and the seller are like worlds apart, I've had them. It's like there's nothing that we're going to be able to. I have one coming up in February. It's going to be a disaster. I know it. But it's a really cool house, but there's literally nothing. And I'd say, hey, I work for you. I want you to get the most for your house. I work on commission. I want it to be worth $1 million. You know, I don't really know if, even if we do find a buyer that would agree to your price, if any of the financial institutions are going to support that. So why don't we get an opinion prior? It's worth your $500 bucks. If you get an appraisal, and you can be totally independent, hire whoever you want. I'm not hiring them. At least you'll get an idea of where the financial institutions are going to say the value of this home is. You know? Then we decide what we're going to do from there.
And how do you present that to them? Because that just gives you a baseline, right? Because obviously it's completely different homes. Buyer brings their own appraisers in. So it's just basically a baseline then? Okay.
Yeah, just give you an idea.
Fluctuates still.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, if I had that appraisal and the new appraiser shows up to do it, I'm more happy to hand the report. These guys appraisal done. I know you guys worked so hard, you know, like that. I'm like this. Nicey. You guys worked too hard. I got this appraisal just came in 2 months ago. Hopefully we can help you out. And a lot of times they use the same information. They don't want to work that hard. They don't make that much money to do an appraisal. If you want to appraise the bank, it's kind of better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we worked for months and months and months, and the appraiser gets paid regardless, you know? So I say, hey, let's protect our stuff at the very end. If you can show that appraisal, you know, at that point in time, that would help. So, any other questions about price right now? No? Basically do your comps. Yep.
How would you know if the guy's not from the area when he gets an appraisal? Would you have to find out yourself and ask?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be much you're going to be able to do about it, but they set their appointments through showing time, and they have an office address on there for where they're at, so you can kind of make a determination by that.
And let's say they're far away, could you request for help on the person?
If you are the buyer's agent, you could maybe ask permission to talk to their lender and say, hey, I noticed the appraisal came through from this person way over here. Is that something you might be able to, you know, request somebody who's more local? You can ask. If you're the listing agent, I mean, not a whole heck of a lot you're going to be able to do about it.
All right.
Hopefully your chips will fall. Other terms that you can negotiate: concessions. So everybody know what concessions are? Okay. Financial institutions have limits on them. The most important thing I can say when we're talking about concessions, and we're going to have a 5-minute break, by the way, at 10.
What are you doing
Just know that different loan programs have maximum amount of concessions that are allowed. So for example, with conventional loans, the maximum you can get is 3% concessions. On FHA loans, the maximum you can get is 6%. So just know that when you are dealing with concessions, it depends on their loan program, how much you can actually get.
So about, when you say 6%, would that be like 6,000, or it depends on the price of the house, obviously?
6% of the sales price.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not like 6,000 or even whatever.
No, if it's a $100,000 house.
Yes. So it depends on the price.
Yes, exactly.
And it's got a appraised with a higher number, sorry.
Yeah, yep. So those are always fun to negotiate. The main thing I would say with concessions main couple things is you want to make sure that if you're representing the seller, that you explain concessions to them properly. A lot of people don't understand what concessions are.
Can you explain?
So the way I explain it to my clients, let's say we have a $100,000 house and they're asking for 3% concessions. So when I explain it to the client, I say, just look at this offer as a $97,000 offer. That's basically what it is to you. And a lot of people will say, well, why am I paying their closing costs? I don't want to pay their closing costs. I try to keep the seller in the mindset of, it's a very popular, first I ask them, have you ever heard of seller concessions? If some of them, if it's a very versed seller, yeah, oh yeah, I got when I bought my house, then that's going to be an easier conversation. Or if they're like, no, I have not heard of concessions. I generally say it's a very popular strategy that buyers use in this market in order to secure property. So,
Thank you.
So basically, what it allows the buyer to do, it allows them to roll some of their upfront closing costs into the life of their loan. So instead of plunking down that $3,000 right at the closing, they can pay an extra $15 a month over the life of their mortgage. It's cheap money for them, and they can use that $3,000 to buy furniture. It's a very, very popular strategy now. So that's how I explain it to them. I explain to the seller they're rolling it in their own mortgage. That way the seller doesn't necessarily feel like they're paying the closing cost for the buyer.
But
So it's
technically
getting
you
them.
paying more. You'd be technically you paying more.
Who?
The buyer. If the money went into the mortgage, don't they have to pay interest on top of it?
Yes.
So they would pay more.
Yes. If you pay, so let's say their payment was going to be $700 a month on that. Now it's $715 a month. But they rolled in, so it's cheap money, 4% or whatever interest rates are, instead of, now they have an extra $3,000 that they don't have to pay at the closing. They rolled it into their mortgage. Now they can use that $3,000 for paint or whatever else.
You said conventional is 3%, FHA is 6%. Is that just Michigan or nationwide?
It's nationwide. And I would always check with the lender on the limitations with concessions before you do anything. So that's one way to kind of get a seller's mindset in that they're not paying the closing costs for the buyer. But I explained to the seller, just think of it as a $97,000 offer. Let's start our negotiations based off of that. The buyer either really needs them or wants them. I don't know if it's a need or a want at this point yet. So we can determine that later when we're deciding how to respond. But this is what we have. And I just tell them, just so you know though, it does have to appraise for the price that we have down here. So it has to appraise for the $100,000, but in all actuality, this is a $97,000 offer to you. So that's how it explains concessions to a seller.
So the appraiser doesn't take concessions into any kind of effect. So it still has to appraise for that $100,000.
Yep. And so that's a useful thing. Like I would find out from the buyer, or the buyer's agent, or the buyer agent lender, is this a need or a want? If you need these concessions in order to complete this transaction, you better set that expectation up with your seller that, hey, we accept this offer and we have nothing else going on right now. And maybe there's no other offers and you really think that they need to take this offer. Present it in a positive light, but always give them the information, let them know. I did find out, however, that these concessions are necessary in order for these buyers to close. So in case we have a light appraisal, it's very unlikely that we are just going to be able to negotiate the concessions away. If we find out that it's a want, so you're going to have to ask the co-op agent this, right? If you find out that it's a want, like they don't have to, they have the money, you will get that information, by the way, you just have to ask. They have the money, but it would make it a lot easier, they'd prefer blah, blah, blah. So that way you kind of know, if you get a light appraisal, the option could be, that's the first thing you're gonna do, well, have them remove their concessions. And that's how you're gonna lay that one out. That's how, what other terms? Closing date, well, closing date, I mean, your typical time frame is really dependent on the lender, so you gotta make sure you have this communication prior. You know, if you are a buyer agent, what's your time frame for closing, lender? It's generally between 30 and 45 days, depending on the loan program, the bank, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of an art and a science with closing date, because, bless you, when I see a closing date, like I just got a contract the other day on one of my listings, and it was a conventional, I believe it was a conventional loan, and it had a 60-day out closing. That's a red flagger to me. I'm like, why? I'm calling the other agent and I'm asking them, why are you putting a 60-day closing on this? Sometimes they're like, oh, well, you know, just so the lender has enough time. I'm like, the lender doesn't need that much time. Let's, you know, back it down a little, because you don't want to leave it pending for 60 days and the day before closing they lose their job or something. You want to try to keep it as tight as you can to when that transaction, when that financial institution can perform on the closing. Sometimes you'll find out more information when you ask the questions. Why is this 60 days? That's a little long. Well, because they have another house they need to close on first. Oh, well, you didn't write a contingent in your offer. You know, you find out information by asking that kind of stuff. Oh, maybe they're waiting for their tax return for their down payment money before they can close. Like, all of that stuff is going to be useful information for you, because you don't want to expose your seller, you know, to something that could be a potential disaster. Sorry, Chris, we just had that one. I wasn't actually picking on you.
I know you were.
I'm just saying, like, why would that be? You know, I just had that come on my listing, so that wasn't your client.
I got you.
Yeah.
It's good discretion.
Yeah, right. So I would try to stick the closing date. Now, cash can close sooner. They can close as soon as you can get an inspection and title. Like a 14-day type thing is generally for cash. 14 to 21 days, typically what is, you know, for cash. Occupancy. Occupancy is something, is a good term. So a lot of clients do not understand occupancy. This is one of the main, hi Nick. Occupancy is one of the main things that get very misunderstood by clients, I've found over the years. So it's much easier for a buyer to understand it, because basically you're telling your buyer, they want 30 days occupancy. The seller wants 30 days occupancy. Okay, a buyer can process this. That means after closing, they can stay in the home for up to 30 days. We're gonna ask them to pay a rent that's equal to your monthly payment divided by 30. Buyer can generally get that. A seller, it's a different story. I don't know why sometimes they can't process it, so you really have to explain to the seller what occupancy means. I've been caught before where, let's say the buyer, or let's say the seller wants 30 days occupancy. They either think that their occupancy payment starts after the 30 days that was on the PA. You know, like, so you've got closing time that's approximately 30 days, say. Now you close, now your occupancy period starts. It's like a hotel. Every night that you stay, you have to pay that hotel rate. A lot of clients think that they get closing, they get 30 days occupancy, so closing on Jan 1, Feb 1, they're supposed to be out, right? No, in their mind, now they have to start paying, and they get 30 more days. So you really have to explain to them what the timing is going to look like before you have them sign. Because if it's not going to work for them, you're going to have a major problem after the fact, after the closing.
So that's early occupancy? Is that what you're talking about? I guess I am confused.
Okay, so basically, like, if you have a contract with a closing date of January 1st and 30 days occupancy.
So they can move in January 1st? No.
30 days after that.
Okay.
But typically on a contract, if you're paying a per diem rate to stay there, your rent starts, like the night of your closing, you're starting to pay that hotel rate. So just tell your seller, Once you close, now unless you're getting free occupancy for a period of time, because that's a strategy, right, with a multiple offer. So we can talk about some multiple offer strategies. But let's just say you're doing your traditional 30-day occupancy. You're usually paying a per diem rate that's equivalent to the new buyer's mortgage payment divided by 30. So you would be paying your payment.
And taxes?
Principal, interest, taxes, insurance.
It's not their house anymore. It belongs to the buyer. You're renting while you're staying at their house now.
Right. Just so you know, there are some contracts out there, if you're a seller's agent, that include a security deposit. Gotta be very careful around those. So like they'll say, hey, we want you to hold $1,000 out for security deposit on top of your occupancy. Keller Williams Lakeside does not allow security deposit because then you would be a renter, which you don't have a landlord-tenant contract with that person. It's very touchy after the fact, and our corporate attorney is very passionate about that. So if you get a contract on your listing that wants you to hold a security deposit, just let them know your broker doesn't allow a security deposit. If they want to hold out 1.5 times occupancy amount, they can do that. So that's essentially a cushion if they overstay, or there's a cushion there if they damage something that you could potentially talk about utilizing, but not a security deposit.
A lot of times, not a lot, I have had it where they want $1,000 to make sure they didn't break anything in the house.
Yes, that is not allowed, believe it or not.
It's not allowed?
Not with our brokerage.
But I've done it here and they haven't kicked it back.
But they can do 1.5%.
1.5 times. So a lot of the buyer contract, I know we've done it a ton of times. I'm just telling you from experience, our broker doesn't allow a security deposit. Pretty much everything that's ever been taught at Con Ed about what you're doing wrong is based on the diary of mistakes Pearden. Because I write for this office. Yep. Just telling. But basically what they're saying is like if your buyer or the buyer's afraid that they're going to overstay and there's not going to be any money left in the kitty, to pay them, or if they're going to damage something, you can always say we can hold 1.5 times the rent in case they overstay or damage something. Again, it's not an automatic. It still has to be. Hi.
Is that your
He's not even there.
Where'd he go?
He's in there. He's in there. Oh, that's right. He took a phone call.
So we all have to say, Al, share your breakfast. Nice meeting you.
Everybody gets a bite.
Smells good.
Stacey, have you had the issue of when people after occupancy go in and the house has been trashed or issues with?
Yeah.
Major or?
Yeah. It's so fun. At that point, if you got a major issue, I generally pull in the way. Because, you're just helping facilitate after that fact. The transaction is closed, but you're pulled into it. So I usually default to brokerage, and see what they say from that point.
Crazy question here. So you're at the closing table. They allow immediate occupancy right after you sign here. You don't have to wait 24 hours for it to record.
No, as long as it's funded, right? So if you close an escrow, no, you can't have the keys at that point.
Okay.
If the wire didn't hit or the funding didn't hit, no, you can't just hand over the keys.
Okay.
And don't hand over the keys. Even if the buyer and seller are in agreement, there's the liability there. So say once it funds, everything can be dispersed.
So then that's the occupancy. You could do occupancy at that time, couldn't you? Yes. Okay.
But most people have, like most lenders, if the funds are there.
Right.
You're doing lawyers and all that jazz now.
And if they both agree without the funds being there, how do you?
You say, listen, you're really opening up a can of worms in a legal standpoint. What if the buyer goes there, slips and falls and breaks their neck?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They won't. You can convince them not.
If you have a situation where the seller is gonna stay there for 60 days, 30 days for free, and then after that first 30 days, they can stay up to an additional 30 days at, per day. Can you keep that 30 days in escrow, the second 30 days? And if they leave early, you could then return that?
You only pay for, it's like pay to play or pay to stay, basically. You're explaining it to the seller. If you stay overnight, it's like a hotel, you pay. So if you withhold 30 days, but you only stay one, you only have to pay 1 day.
But that money's held in escrow and you return, so you're paid up front for that.
Yep.
And then, say they moved out on the 30-day mark, which was the free 30 days.
Yep.
And you have, we'll say, $3,000 in escrow for the additional 30 days.
Uh-huh.
What if they damage the place at that point? Can that money be used towards it, or that would be considered security money at that point?
If
There is no security money.
That's right. Did I not just say that?
No, I
Did I not
don't
just
care
say
if
that,
I
everybody? I told
There is
them.
no security money. It's not a lease. Right.
See?
No, and that's what I'm saying, would you not be able to use it, because if you used it towards that, then
Not
it would be considered
automatically. Now
security money
you
and there is.
can ask. You know, you can say, hey, it was damaged.
You want to wait till
Here's what your purchase agreement says. Your purchase agreement says the seller shall deliver the property in substantially safe condition as the time the property is viewed and sold. If they don't, the remedies are taken to court. That's it. If they can't settle it, see you in court. They always settle it. You're going to see the lawyer, and the lawyer says, you know, 10 grand take a year. Well, we better figure out a way.
Yeah. So you can talk about it, but it's not, like I said, if you get a contract on your listing that has a security deposit thing, you have to tell the other agent, our brokerage does not allow that because it's not a lease. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we can come back. Coffee, water,
Oh, Stacy. Stand underneath the thing here.
What?
Stand right underneath there. There we go. Perfect. Perfect.
I didn't watch TV.
What would you do?
Isn't that funny?
It's commission. I never see how you were for 3 months.
Yeah, I think people really, the whole personality.
I was already loose first.
So when you said that, everything said that about that, communication, styles, right now I'm reading the 5 love languages,
I don't
my
know.
team's reading that.
I don't know the
Oh, you know what, I'm not going to read at all. They're probably.
475.
Nobody wants to read the book.
Yeah, they went
Sample.
Okay,
I
from
want to
mine.
know. Okay, wait, was it today? Or sorry, because I don't know.
So where I was off of 23 mile, and I was out my open house flag. Okay, right at the entrance there.
Was it
Hello, Joe Black. I'm like, yeah. So anyways, there was a couple
Hold on. I want to see the house. Because I already know what my house looks like.
Oh, wait, it's blue one.
Do you own a 16?
No, I don't.
What's your
Instead of having.
Yeah.
Is that how?
That's how she makes
It says seller, 3,000 concession, buyer.
said, did I tell you, well, I did, yesterday, I had 60 plus people come to my house.
Good for you. I had one last year recording one.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you want.
How'd you do it?
How-
Would you do something different or?
No, it was
Just
the
a
house was just a really good house.
That's not the way you've done that,
Completely
it's very
renovated.
common now.
And whoever they hired for
When I spoke to
constructors
one
to do the
page,
kitchen,
you
what
guys do,
cabinets,
it
neutral
shows
colors,
concession.
brand new fireplace,
Miss
everything was
Baker,
brand new,
flat
it
is
was
home
just
back here.
So it was a
amazing.
great house.
51273 Blue
So
Springs.
if you're getting off the past concessions.
51273.
You get a little fuel.
That was for our house. So you said we were flat. No, I guess we used that.
But in the.
It's
So
315. No, it doesn't compare. Doesn't compare. And it's on your-
Okay, do you remember their names? Did they give you did they give you their information?
Yep.
They did.
What
What were they talking about? Because I don't know if it's the same school. It might be the same
I think it's the same.
But I
How are you
have
doing?
to go through my cases.
How you doing?
Because I had at least
Everything
5
all right?
potential buyers, and it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna
No,
go,
thanks for playing.
it's gonna go over.
All right.
Saying hi, that's a good one. Where's your goatee?
I had to take it out.
They listed it Thursday, I don't know how long it's been listed,
It's
I
been
don't know.
listed for a while and it's gonna go down.
So, listen, so it was listed on Thursday, it's an investor,
So.
and they put it like, if I show you pictures,
At that point, that was
just
normal.
amazing.
No, it's a beautiful house.
You have sports
I'm just saying, I did the
throughout the
research
whole
on
house.
it. The research had it.
It just got listed Thursday.
Oh,
I'm like,
see, I would like to get it one house that actually breaks one market.
oh, and the basement was like 11 feet high, and people were like, our houses, our basements in this, area the same? I'm like, honestly, I don't know, but our basement, the previous owner,
It was a decision I
the
made
way
for
it was
business.
constructed,
See how it
I don't know how you guys did deeper to have a high ceiling basement. So everything was just solid, basement, kitchen, white, countertop, huh?
They got
I'm
working.
working on it. I'm working on it, cause I have like priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because obviously the investor wants to sell it like this. You know, they don't care because I know them or not, they're gonna take the highest and best, you know what I mean? So there's a few people who are willing to sell 3 to 5. They're gonna just cross that out. There's people who are willing to sell, they might cross that out. They have a cash offer, they might take that one.
Right, sub-agent, and you sub agent, means you the sub-agent for selling.
And how about I tell you, one thing that I regret not doing is taking the video with all the process, but I will say this. Oh, yeah. But I will say this, it was, yes. So what I did yesterday, because I didn't know how people would feel about what I see, all the traffic that was
There should be
coming in.
no.
But I took multiple pictures of other issues that were in
You see the news?
Yeah.
Ask me. A lot of.
Well, this one by Beyond Staff.
That's awesome.
This one not staff. How many people, how many?
Did you sign up?
Of course not.
And it was.
Last time. Look at the kitchen, so you have quartz countertop, brand new appliances, quartz countertop, solid cabinets.
What was that?
Free It wasn't, like I said, it was a flip, so people are already offering cash offers, I don't know what they are, but I do know, one of them was like $350. So it's gonna sell for maybe $350, I don't know, especially the people that came through that didn't have a filter. I have like a good 5 or 6, but obviously there's priorities, let's see where some of their, so, they bought it for $170.
Sharing my experience.
Public
And go off
records.
the
Yeah.
deal.
They bought it-
They bought it for 170.
There's
Right here.
a pretty penny.
They bought it for 170.
Yeah.
Six
The
times.
yellow farmhouse.
I also feel excited because this is us that I'm buying. Yep, I'm so excited, yeah.
Okay, so.
They probably put 40 grand in there.
No, I think they put more.
So
No,
I
no,
find-
no. I really think
Yeah,
they
yeah,
put
yeah.
more, because
Yeah.
when they're
They're
if you
rear
went to
ended
an entrance
for,
and that's the bedroom,
over 40
so
years.
I don't think there was a gap in there. So what I think they did was,
And I get lots of-
Okay,
from
yeah.
a walking class. Okay, no, listen, so originally, I don't think what I did was, so the master bedroom.
No, yeah, there's always next.
So when I came in,
Oh, really?
away from the full walking class, so the shower is already.
Oh, the next.
Yeah. Those rooms are not. Oh my God. Like I said,
Okay.
that is the most I ever had.
I bet you can go down.
I mean,
But yes, I know a couple of ways to but
Really?
Because it sounds like a free way That's the reason I
All I learned from
how bad do you want the house?
So I'm sure one of them
We're trying to negotiate because there's a renovation while he's living there. Do you have exterior stuff or research? It was in there that
because
is used to exterior. You know, and then put a rider on whatever you can drive. Obviously, you can handle that, right?
Yeah.
Open the door. You know, I see the picture on the inside. Yeah, but I actually just sold a house in my little said with the one that is part of the deal. Yeah, he can see where the one the but they have to be able to do exterior. All they want to rip down, ripping down all of that. Yeah, that's why. Did you talk about
If you want to provide a process, they want to stay with us.
Here's $7 scenario, what is it?
All right, are we gonna reconvene here?
So the 8 minutes is 8 minutes between yours and mine.
Oh, yeah.
All right, 1 minute drill. We're gonna start it up in 1 minute.
It was in my
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You have to have a gift.
But I was
I
telling you.
cannot either. Thanks for the compliment. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Because right there's a gap between your sellers and buyer expectations are.
We're gonna get into, we're gonna get into dealing with co-ops too, in this section.
My favorite model.
Yeah, yeah, that is the roughest right now. And, yeah, just have Oh,
Prices to give away.
yeah, yeah. That's why the top was in that video. Ask me what you won't believe it.
But I figured I was
All right. Okay, we're gonna restart. Okay, so I was going through this PowerPoint and I realized I should probably touch base on a couple of these things here. Thanks, Al. Just in general, so the 3 Ps approach is kind of corny, but most of what we've been talking about so far is the prepare of the 3 Ps, right? We're preparing, but that's where most of your time should be spent preparing, so that you can control the negotiation going into it. So the more knowledge and preparation you have, the better. If you ever a test that you don't prepare for, you're gonna bomb. Anything that you're winging, a lot of times it doesn't go how it would go if you prepare. So most of the stuff we're talking about already was preparation. Presenting. Once you've got everything together, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk the nitty-gritty about all the other little things that you can actually include or negotiate. They're on there. Earnest money, my opinion is minimum 1% of the sales price. That's kind of my rule of thumb. Repairs. It's rare when you put a repair up front in a PA. Those usually come after an inspection.
I'd recommend, I'd recommend not putting it ever in the PA, always put it in an addendum. You don't have to show the lender that it's an addendum.
Yes, good trick. We can kind of talk about my opinion of how you negotiate inspections in a minute. So let me get through this 3P approach. Presenting. Okay, so presenting is how are you going to present it to your client? Or if you're the buyer agent, how are you going to present it? I think you actually have to present it twice when you're the buyer agent. First, you got to present it to your client. How are we going to write this offer? And guide them and show value. And then 2, how are you going to present it to most of the time now, it's the co-op agent. Used to be, you're getting to present it to the seller too. Lots of times. That is the answer to your question of when there's multiple offers, how to get your offer accepted. How do you have a leg up chance? Ask if you can present the offer in person to the client.
Yeah.
That hardly ever happens anymore. And it's a lot of if you get an old school agent, like somebody that's been in the business 20 plus years, you might actually get the opportunity to do that because that's how we always used to do it. New way of doing things is just loop it to them, email it to them, just send it. Oh, how am I going to personalize it? How am I going to get my point across? Well, we'll write a letter and put a picture of my client in there. You know, that's like the most leverage that we're getting these days. And that's not a whole lot of leverage because now you're relying on the other agent to know how to do their job. And what we're going to talk about in this segment is the fact that most of them don't know how to do their job. So you're basically putting your client's future in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So if you can present the offer in person, that's great. If somebody asks me to present their offer in person, I'm going to find a way around it to not have to spend my time doing that. But if they really insist, you have to be able to do that, unless the seller is out of town or something like that. So if you have an insistent enough agent, they have to let you present. It's Michigan law that you have the right to present. But a lot of people don't go that far anymore. And then, how are you going to position yourself once you do present the offer? What are going to be your key components of how to negotiate? So let's talk about a few of those things now. The actual getting into the negotiating with the other agent and that kind of stuff. They talk out here about nonverbal cues and stuff. A lot of that is like just knowing people, you know, like picking up on body language. Again, knowing your client, what we talked about in the very beginning. Okay, so tactics and presenting. So let's see, what do we want to do first? Being a buyer agent or a listing agent? Listing. Okay, so you're the listing agent, and now you're presenting the offer on behalf of the buyer agent, like the more popular way things are done these days. Okay, so you don't have the other agent sitting across from you, right? You have their offer, it was emailed to you. Now you need to present it to your seller, right? Okay, so you got all your information. Give me a scenario that you want me to negotiate. Let's make up a scenario.
He does, he's not netting what he wants to have.
20 grand under list.
20 grand under list. Okay. How long has the home been on the market?
90 days.
90 days. Okay. And it's a $200,000 house?
200 something.
Okay. So it's a 180 offer on a $200,000 list price, been on the market 90 days. Okay. What other terms you got?
She's, basically, that's too easy.
No.
You gotta throw a lot more at her.
They want immediate occupancy, but the seller's asking for 60 days.
Okay, perfect. Let me write this down so I don't forget what the offer is. See, that's the whole thing about making sure you take notes.
What was the last one, Steve?
They want immediate occupancy, but the seller wants 60 days. That comes up quite a bit extra.
And they want flooring concessions. How's that?
They want concessions.
And they want the washer and dryer that the seller doesn't want to leave.
Okay, washer, dryer. And a $3,000 flooring. A $3,000 flooring.
She has to write it down.
So that's essentially a concession, right?
Right.
It's looked at as a lender, as a concession. So we won't say a flooring allowance in the PA, right? Because we don't want to alert the lender that the floors are all jacked up. So, okay, this is a good one because what the tactic I'm going to use is layering, okay? We have to find the good parts of this offer. So, first thing we do is call up the client, or you can meet with them. You meet with them in person. You should be meeting with your client in person if you have less than 10 deals going. I mean, seriously, it should not be a time. It's the most effective, very good use of your time to be there in person. You will get your way most of the time, right? And your way is not to convince a seller to take a lower price. Your way is to get their house sold, because that's what they hired you for. That's what they ultimately want you to do, right? So you're not working against your client, you're working for your client. So you want to layer this bad offer, okay?
Be careful, sorry. Be careful in text messaging. It's so easy to misconstrue things. I've had so many problems myself.
Oh,
with text messaging.
Are we up for text messaging on our team? Do we like text messaging negotiations? Zero. No. Horrible.
Thank you. It's important.
Horrible. You don't even have a disclaimer in there. Like, at least with on email, you have that disclaimer on the bottom saying that none of this constitutes a binding contract or any terms that you're agreeing to unless a written purchase agreement is signed by all parties. Right? You have that disclaimer on your email, right? Everybody should.
Nope.
I'll email you. If you guys email me, I'll just reply to you or something like that. And my disclaimer's on there.
What's your email?
Stacy, Stacy, @peardenteam.com. So you should all have that disclaimer.
Spell period?
Pearden. Peardon.
She's looking at her
Peardenteam.com. So, again, don't do anything through text message. And I rarely do it via email either, because again, you know, stuff happens. One time I remember doing oh my God, this was the worst. I'll just tell you. I freaking accepted on behalf of my client the wrong offer via email. Oh my. We had multiple offers on this house, I mean a lot of them. And I got the agents confused. They had like similar names or something. And I emailed one, "You got the house," or whatever. And he was like, "Yay!" And he goes and he tells his client. And then I'm like, "Oh, that's not the one. That's not the offer we accepted."
So how do you fix that?
Really not cool. I had to tell the guy, dude, I got you confused by the other guy. Your offer did not get accepted. Thank God I had the disclaimer in there. If I would have done that via text message, they probably could have sued us. Yeah. Yeah, it was so bad. The guy was so upset, and rightfully so. And it was just not good. So don't do that either. Yeah. I've done it all. Like every single thing that could possibly happen has happened. Even things you can't even imagine. Those have happened too. But yeah, so don't do stuff. That's a very good point. Very good point.
That's why you make the comment. Tweak anything to see if there's an opportunity for them to be able to tweak their offer to accept that one instead of the one you were going to call next. That really got it.
Then you know what? You're mucking up your deal with your seller, you know, and you look bad. And as much as you want to, again, represent your seller, whatever, sometimes the clean, you know, straightforward, don't put a ton of doubt in their head because they're going to be second guessing. Should I take this one? Should I take that one? Maybe we can go back to all of them and say, well, would you give me this? Would you give me that? No, let's just look at our offers. What's most important to you? So here, we got a bad offer. It's not bad at all. We can get this one accepted easy. It's been on the market for 90 days. Average days on the market in that neighborhood is 37. So the market is already speaking to us. They wanted to be moved out by summer, okay? So you're revisiting the fact that they want to be moved out by summer. Hey, Steve, it's Stacy. We got an offer on the property. Give me a call.
Excellent. Call back immediately.
Okay. Hello?
Hey, I heard we got an offer.
Yes, we do. All right. You sitting down?
Should I be?
Yeah. Okay, great. No, just grab a pen, actually, just
right.
so I can, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to go over the main components of the offer. And just let me explain all the main components, and then we can go back and address each component. Sound good?
Okay.
And if it's something that we're going to be able to work out, then I'll send you out the paperwork, and we can go over it word by word and all that kind of stuff. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So, good news is, we got an offer, right? It's a little bit lower than what we're looking for here, but you don't know everybody's negotiation style. They all have different negotiation styles. You don't know what the parents are telling them back here. You know, don't really know. They might just be testing you out because it's been on the market a while. I mean, like 3 times longer than the average in that sub, right? And we've been talking about that. So they offered 180. And then, you know, just go quickly. They offered 180. They want you to leave the appliances that you were already leaving in the kitchen. They also are looking for the washer and dryer to stay too.
I want to know those.
Okay, no problem. Let me just tell you all the components of the offer, and then we can go back and look at each one of these things individually. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So all appliances, including washer dryer, they have awesome financing. So they're a conventional buyer with 20% down. I mean, that's a low risk buyer. I've already reviewed their pre-approval letter. I've called their loan officer, and you can do that, by the way.
That's huge.
You can do that, by the way. Even though they say they can't give you the information, you do it anyway. Because if you don't, that's, you know, wait till that deal falls through and then your seller says, didn't you check on the pre-approval? So I already called their loan officer. They said these are like golden boy buyers. So that I feel really good about. We can close within 30 days, which is pretty good. So it will get you to your time frame of being moved before the summer. They're putting down a 1% earnest money deposit, which is my rule of thumb, you know, to at least be there. And they're not asking for a home warranty or anything like that, so that's cool. 7-day inspection period or 7-day due diligence, which is totally normal. Most people are going to have that. And then, one other little item here is they're asking for a, you know, most of our feedback we were talking about, like you need a new carpet, but you weren't going to move all your furniture out and get new carpet. Yeah, they're asking for a $3,000 concession, which would go towards new flooring for them. They're specifying that. So that's basically the gist of the offer. So let's go back and talk about what we want to do here. So be mad.
I can't accept that low. I owe too much. I put too much into the house already. I'm not gonna lose that much money on it. Besides, I needed 2 months to move my stuff out. How am I gonna get it in 30 days?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we have a few things to work on. Listen, don't be upset at these people. Be upset at the 32 other showings that you had that you didn't make an offer, right? These people actually like it enough to put something in writing, to actually pay $180,000 for your house. Now, you've got 3 options here, Steve. We can accept the offer as is, no changes, be pending, be on our way to a closing right now. I know you're probably not gonna do that, but that's one option. Number 2, you can flat out reject it, which I would not recommend. Number 3, we can counter offer any part of the offer. So, I'm thinking you might want to counter offer.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
What's
So,
the benefit of this accepting the offer being done? What's my big benefit there?
well, a lot. A lot is what we can do if you're really considering just accepting and going through the closing. I can let the agent know, hey, this is lower than way lower than we were originally hoping to get. But we do have a motivation to get a deal under contract here. Here's the deal. If my guy's gonna accept this, you're having your inspection as a pass-fail. We're not doing little tweaking negotiations after the inspection, not fix this little thing, tweak this little thing. It's you either want the house or you don't. And you have to do your inspection within 4 days. That way we can get quick pass-fail. They're not gonna try to nickel and dime us after the inspection. You'll be done with it.
Makes sense.
So, you do stand the risk of them saying, forget it, and walking away if we do counteroffer, by the way, just so you know. Once you change any part of it, you re-offer, is basically what you're doing. So if you are considering that, let's talk about maybe other ways that we can get benefit out of this. But if you are gonna counteroffer it, let's do it with making them feel good and making you feel good. What I would recommend against is, counter offering way high, and then they're gonna come back, and then you're gonna come back, and then we're gonna come back, and then somebody's just gonna throw their hands up in the air and say, forget it, because it's, picking fly shit out of pepper. It's just, you're really doing like, I would recommend counter offering with something that you feel you can live with. You can show a little movement there, that you're a serious seller, and counteroffer somewhere where we might actually get them to accept. So instead of you counteroffering at like 197, they're gonna come back again. Obviously they wouldn't have written 180, right? They felt that it was worth 197. Why don't you come back something like 190? Split the difference with them, and maybe split the flooring concession with them. 190 with a $1,500 concession, the likelihood of them accepting that is large. You probably end up with more than going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Okay. You think we'll get more offers? Should I wait, or should we figure out take this one?
It's been 90 days. What you've done already is you've depleted the initial rush buyer pool, right? Everybody that's kind of been waiting, they've lost out on other houses, whatever. That whole crew is coming up. That's your best chance of selling it. Now you're just subject to waiting to new people coming to the market. New people that have sold their homes in order to buy. New people getting transferred in. New people getting married. That's the dripping that we're getting now. So I would say a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. Let's go with it.
Okay.
Cool. I got a pending. Right?
Yeah.
So you just have to, the whole idea is pick the positives out, highlight the positives. You have to truly believe that him selling the house at that price is not a bad thing for one reason or another, whether it be timing, maybe the people are hard up on money, they're running out of money. Maybe there's going to be so much deferred maintenance coming on that home. You can just see it and they don't have the money to pay for it. There's so many reasons why it would be a good thing. Also, you would have had an offer by now if it was worth 200, right? So you know the market's telling us is probably should be closer to the 194.
My biggest thing I found is don't ever assume what they're gonna accept or not accept. So many times they think, they never accept this offer and they did. Well, they did accept it. You know, sometimes, they may have told you, I'm not betting that, and offer 20 grand a house.
When people see something in writing, a lot of times it changes their dynamic. They could tell you one thing, but if you have it in writing, now it's real, right?
Was that strategy to talk about the carpet credit? So maybe we can just focus on the price and then.
I always talk about concessions the very last.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's somebody that doesn't understand, concession, we kind of explain how we look at concessions, right? They're rolling it in. But this was a flooring thing, so we already had a reason.
And he had feedback, of the show and said, the floor, whatever it is, so that helps.
Right.
It's important to give good feedback at the EHQ show, by the way, as the buyer's agents. Give good feedback to the listing agents. They get some strength for their offers. It really makes a difference.
On showing time, you can actually go and tweak your questions, by the way. You can personalize them. So all of my showing feedback for all of my listings is not your standard questions that you fill out. We have a little more in-depth questions to get more information out of them. So.
I have a question for you. I had a client once where I felt like I was selling everything in their house. Can you ask them if they want this? Can you ask them if they want that? Why don't they want this? I'm like,
hey, listen, the lender is not going to allow us to put any of those things in the purchase agreement.
Yeah.
If it's cash, you say, we cannot put all these personal items in the purchase agreement. We have to do that separately. So let's do this. Let's sell the house first.
Yeah.
Then what you can do is you can compose an email of all the stuff that you might be willing to leave or sell, and I will pass that along to the agent after we get them to buy the house. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't they do it on the bill of sale?
Again, yeah. I don't know if it does.
I'm just asking if you, bill of sale.
Yeah, later, the title company later,
Yeah.
but on the PA,
Yeah, you don't do any of it.
right. And I'm not really into being furniture salesperson. I tell
Is it wrong to have the seller basically call the buyer directly and work that stuff out?
I have done that now and then when it's gotten to the ridiculous. I wouldn't do it. If they're having occupancy, I'd say wait till after the closing. If they're doing immediate occupancy, I would say just send me a list and a price, because it's happened where they've done their own furniture negotiations and there's been a miscommunication there. Okay. That kind of thing.
Also, most buyers in the summer don't meet until closing. And I've seen deals almost fall apart because the buyers and sellers didn't like each other. So I prefer the communication stay minimal for me at least. I'm going to be the intermediary to message the buyer and seller. I'm not going to have them getting together and calling each other.
Yeah, I think more could go wrong than good by connecting them prior.
If the buyer contacts the seller, you don't even know if they knock on the door, how do you handle it?
You can't control every aspect. I would just, if I find out about it after the fact, I would just say to my client, hey, you know what? Until we have this thing closed, let's try to do all the communication through the agents, just so there's no he said, she said stuff,
Just so you're protected.
Yeah.
What would be your approach if you flipped it and made it FHA, if the offer was FHA? So what would you come to your client about? What would be your pros and cons there? Because we know FHA, isn't as good as conventional. They're not dropping a heftier down payment, the whole 9 yards. What would be your approach at that point with your client?
If it's the only offer?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you should know if it can pass FHA or not, right? So if it can pass FHA, when I'm walking through a house initially, I make a notation of all the things that I think might be flagged at FHA. So I already kind of know if we're going to offer FHA and they don't have GFI outlets by water sources. I tell them up front, hey, we don't want to not offer FHA for this little thing here, because you're talking about 50% of your buyer pool at certain price points is going to be FHA, so you're really eliminating half the people that are potentially going to look at it. So let's offer FHA, just so you know, they're probably going to flag the outlets for $20 at Home Depot. You may have to replace a few of those, and we'll cap your repair. Or, oh, I know it has peeling paint around the garage, I know they're going to flag that or something like that. So that's the first step, is kind of know what they're going to flag.
let's say all that's good. Let's say their house is good to go, it's updated, you're not worried about that part, but you
Okay.
still have that offer on your plate.
So if it's the only offer, sometimes even if there's multiple offers, you can still do FHA over conventional. I would just say, hey, it's a FHA offer. You know what that is? Oh yeah, I've heard horrible things about that from my family members. Well, when did they sell their house? 20 years ago. Well, that's why you heard horrible things. Like, it's totally different. It's actually an easier loan to get for the buyer than any other loan out there. We have the most flexibility with credit score. We have the most flexibility with all the requirements there. They are automatically underwritten. So it's already been automatically approved via the underwriter, just subject to a lot of the other verifications of those kind of things that they need to do in the closing. And it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's just a government-backed loan, just the kind of product it is over another. In fact, right now there's conventional loans that are 3% down, 0% down, 5% down. And I'd rather take an FHA over maybe like a 3% down conventional if we have a good house, because I know it's an easier loan to get approved on. You know?
Yeah.
On the repairs, what do you cap them at? What's your rule of average?
It depends. I usually say like $200. If I can get the buyer to pay for them, that's even better.
So getting back to your, the items of sale, so let's say like on the MLS it says like your hot tub can be sold separately, you know, it's not included in the price. How would you exactly do that, through the title company then, or?
I would do an addendum for a hot tub. Like a hot tub, a riding lawnmower, more typical things that you would see, you know, just do an addendum that it's included.
So like our purchase agreement, like how it has a little thing that you check if an addendum is included. So obviously you wouldn't click that because the lender doesn't want that. But then how do you make sure they both get sent? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I hear what you're saying there.
Send them over the same package, send them over the same PDF, it's all the same thing. That's when I send the offer over, my addendums are, I do a one-page PDF for all of it, and everything's
She's
there.
saying,
But I don't.
the lender will be fine if it's on a separate addendum, those
even
items.
if you click addendum, like it's showing that there's something connected.
Yeah.
Even if the lender doesn't have to get that.
The lender just won't let it be on the purchase agreement.
Right.
They'll make you put it on an addendum.
Right.
What you don't want the lender seeing is repay, like, let's say you do your inspection and they found something and now they want a $1,000 concession because of some repair, whatever. I wouldn't put an addendum saying buyer, seller agrees to credit buyer $1,000 for such and such repair. Don't put that in the addendum. Just put buyer and seller agree. The purchase price is $200,000 with a $1,000 seller concession goes towards buyer's prepaid items and mortgage closing costs. All other terms and conditions.
Don't say anything
Don't
about
say
a home
why.
inspection.
Right.
Yeah, don't say why you're giving the concession.
And
Just
don't
say,
give them into the home inspection.
Yeah.
Sorry. I picked it up twice.
yeah. So you can certainly let the lender know you have an addendum, just don't put like red flag items in the addendums. Yeah. Cool. All right, what else we talked about today? Tactics. Oh, tactics and counter tactics. So basically, okay, this is all like counter offering and yada yada.
That's it.
Do we want to talk about if you have a buyer, like how to do that?
Sure.
Okay. So, and then we can talk a little bit about how to deal with other co-op agents, and then that'll probably be wrapping up our time.
I actually found something. Would you recommend meeting with the client to write the offer in person? More than
Absolutely, especially
Okay.
if it's your first offer that you're writing with that client. So it's really important to have a initial consult with the client. You're obviously going to have that if you're listing most of the time. And we always promote buyer consultation, right? That's when you get your agency signed and your buyer, your contract signed. But sometimes you want to include maybe like a blank purchase agreement, say, or go over a purchase agreement, just say, just to get you familiar with the paperwork that we're going to be utilizing. This is our company purchase agreement that we're going to be, once we find a house, we're going to be writing our offer on. You can familiarize them at the buyer consult if you want. I still think you need to be in person when you write the first offer. Because they, you know, what most of them aren't even going to read, they're just going to click the little DocuSign thing, and they might not even realize that they're signing a buyer agency with you at that point in time, if they're just clicking through. You know, they need to understand what they're getting into, and you're showing your value. Otherwise, we're just going to be door openers, guys. You know, if you're not taking the time to meet with your client and go over an offer that they're going to buy, they're not seeing you as an asset at that point in time. You're going to end up getting, well, I found the house, and I told my agent about it, and they didn't really do anything. You know, you have to be building your value to maintain your career. So I think it's very important to do that. That way you can go through everything, and they are understanding what they're signing.
Just out of curiosity, when, say, you have the buyer, do you set up the home inspection, or do you let your client set up the home inspection?
We set it up.
Okay. I've been where it's been both, whether I let the buyer actually pick his or her home inspector and say what day is best, and then I call the seller's agent and ask.
You can obviously let them pick whoever they want for their home inspection.
Right.
You can't tell them who they have to use. We definitely recommend somebody, because here's the thing. In the state of Michigan, there is no licensing requirement for a home inspector. So literally, any dude could just slap a magnet on the side of his truck and become Uncle Louie's home inspector. You know, there's no requirements at all. So when we recommend our inspector, say, hey, you are certainly free to use whoever you want to use, but this person actually has credentials, they have to do continuing ed, they have liability coverage. I mean, if you break a window or something while you're there, the inspector does, and they don't have liability coverage, you're screwed. You have to pay for it. If, you know, what if they miss something? If they don't have errors and omissions and insurance, you're out of luck there too. So you do, you know, you can pick whoever you want, but we have a couple of people that we would highly recommend. And then send them their names, let them research them on the internet or whatever. But then we generally try to pick our own, we generally try to facilitate setting that up, because if one of us has to be there, I'm not just gonna let the client pick a random time that oh, this is best for my schedule. Well, it might not be best for my schedule.
Oh, you're there for the home inspections?
Yes, it's a requirement.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
Because you want to be able to talk, if something comes up in the home inspection that the client may blow up, oh my God, it's huge. That's a $20 item, don't worry about that. That's not to worry about.
Okay.
Well, this is something to worry about. So if you're there, you can actually defuse the situation, you know, and another thing, good home inspectors don't kill a deal. They don't say, it's covered with mold. Well, there's some organic stuff up here, but I recommend getting it checked out. What did you just say? I recommend getting checked out by somebody else.
Right.
Typically.
So let's go over that a little. You have a buyer, they want to make an offer on a house. It's the same kind of thing, you're pulling comps for that buyer. Again, it depends on the situation. If you're in a multiple offer situation, you're going to have to try to come up with ways to be the most attractive offer. First, you want to let your client know you're not going to get another shot. You better put your best foot forward at this moment in time if it's a multiple offer situation. Some buyers think that they can put an initial offer down in a multiple offer situation, and then the seller's going to come back and say, that's not good enough, we have a better one over here. Do you want to up yours, or do you want to change some terms? That is not how it works. In fact, sometimes the idiot agents don't even tell you there's multiple offers. So you have to ask. You have to ask. They don't have to tell you if you don't ask. But if you ask, they can't lie. Okay, so ask, are there multiple offers? Do you have any? And I don't like try to seem desperate, like, do you have any other offers? You know, I'm just like, hey, do you have anything else on the table right now? Do you know of anything else coming in? Okay, good to know. We are in the process of preparing an offer. Get anything in the meantime, or anybody else contacts you to say they're sending something in, would you give me a heads up? So that way, you'll know, are you competing, are you not competing? If they say they have other offers, ask them how many you have. They don't have to tell you, but most of them will. I ask them, what are the terms of the other offers? Some people will actually tell you. Yeah, the good agents say, well, no, I really can't give you all of that information. But if there's an agent that I know is a good agent, this is why agent relationships are so important. I will try to maybe give them a little bit of information that might help them make their offer good enough to be a competitor. Because I want to work with agents that know what they're doing. I want to work with agents that, you know, I know this is going to close, because what I don't want is have a deal fall through. If a deal falls through on me, sometimes I'm getting fired over that. When I have no control over the fact that that deal fell through, I'm going to be the fall person. So I'm not going to be setting myself up for a deal to fall through. So that's why getting a good relationship with other agents, making a good name for yourself, filling out all of your forms completely, checking every box, don't have sloppy paperwork, getting it all over, like, know your stuff. It doesn't matter if you're newer. Most agents aren't even gonna ask. They might see your number or whatever, but most agents don't pay attention to that. They just want people that can communicate. People that are, like, I don't know what it is with agents now, but they all want to fight the minute they come out. It's like, put your nukes up. It's called co-opting for a reason. We are trying to cooperate to get a common goal accomplished. And a lot of agents out there right now automatically think they have to fight with you as the other agent to get the best deal for their client, when you can you can be like a kick-butt negotiator and still get along with the other agent. You know, still work together for a common goal. And that's what good agents do. There's a lot of bad ones out there right now. Yeah.
You know, I was gonna say, when you talk, you know, these seller disclosures, they're wrong 9 out of 10 houses. So if you have your client sign off on those, you're opening yourselves up to liability. Like, they're not filled out, lines are missing, they're filled out wrong, it's a huge problem. I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 houses, it's a case. I have to have agents refilling out 3 or 4 times, sometimes in 50 days, 20 days.
Is that their fault though?
It's your fault when you have to sign off on them. Because you're the buyer agent, so you're now opening your client up to liability,
Right.
you have to sign
Yeah,
off
but
on
the seller disclosure is the seller telling you what's going on in the house.
But sometimes they don't fill it out completely. And if you still allow your client as a buyer to sign it, when it's not filled out completely, you're just having them sign an incomplete seller disclosure statement.
So what
So you would request, you put in the offer, there's a section that you can sign saying with seeing seller's disclosure and without. You put without, and then in the comments you write seller to fully complete seller disclosure statement, you know, within 24 hours, or subject to seller completely filling out seller disclosure statement within, you know, 24 hours.
So every single line has to have something in it on that disclosure.
Correct.
And the majority are not.
It's true. That's a good point that you brought up, Chris.
99%.
You can't tell a client what to put on a seller's disclosure when you're a listing agent, but you can tell them if it's not completed. You know, when you're listing the home and you're having them, you know, oh, fill out this disclosure, and you're getting it back, you can look at it and say, it's not fully completed. You have to answer every question.
What if it's exempt? Like if they didn't live in the house and they write on their exempt, what do you do then?
They're not exempt if they didn't live in the house, only if they are selling it for a, like an executor that has passed away. That's the only exemption.
Okay.
That they really are exempt.
Yeah.
But if it's like an investor,
right?
you have to fill out as much as you know.
Yeah,
You
but if it-
still own the home.
But I have had a couple, like my son bought a house where they had mother died and the kids were selling it.
That, they are exempt.
They are exempt, so that's awesome.
Unless their name is on the title, then they are not.
But with the investors, there still would be blank spots that your buyer would be signing then, agreeing to, right?
Yeah, we can contingent on a home inspection at that point.
Yeah, but you still need a completed, the only people who are exempt from filling out a seller disclosure statement are a bank. If you're selling a home for a passed away person or somebody that medically cannot, like, make any sort of decisions for themselves, and new construction. Those are the only three. If you're an investor and you're flipping it and you never lived in the home, you still have to fill out the seller disclosure statement.
So if they don't know, they have to put.
Unknown is a perfectly acceptable answer, but it has to be answered.
A lot of flip properties have it blank. You gotta send it back. Part of, I like that, part of the offer, send it back and fill it out because they know, they put in the kitchen, they know things about the property, just don't want to tell you about it.
Right.
I've seen when they put a whole line through it, like an investor.
Yeah.
And they'll all just put a whole line through it and say.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. You just have to tell the other agent, hey dude, like, you don't have to be mean about it.
Yeah.
Say, hey man, you have an investor, they're not exempt. Like, they have to fill out what they know.
A lot of agents don't know, I'll be honest, they don't know.
If they don't know, they don't, oh, you mean the other agencies?
They don't know they have to.
actually don't.
Right.
So, yes, when you are there, filling out an offer for a buyer, go in person, then you can talk about the different aspects. You know, how are we gonna make our offer good? What are we gonna do? A lot of them don't know, like my rule of thumb about minimum 1% of earnest money deposit. A lot of them, you know, all these aspects they don't know, especially if they've never bought a house before. So it's very important to do it in person with them. If they are asking for unrealistic stuff, you have to guide them. It's like, yeah, you can put that, but it's not gonna go anywhere. You have to make it a win-win situation for both parties.
Do you put an expiration, like, on the deal, so you present, you know, if you like give 24 hours to answer, something like that?
Yeah, in different scenarios.
I've heard of like agents doing that every single deal. They're like, oh yeah, I always put a 24-hour.
A lot of them do.
Yeah.
I have on my cover page, I ask for 48 hours, just for time for me to get the offer. I gotta review it. I have to call the lender. I have to do my own due diligence. I don't work Sunday. You know, I have to do my own due diligence on the offer before I can present it. Like some people, you get an offer and you just see it in your email, you pull it up, you're like, oh, 155? Okay, cool. And you call the seller, 155. Okay, well, you didn't review the rest of it. You didn't call to see if the lender, you know, actually has all of their documents, or did they just run their credit report? So but I get it also. On the flip side, you don't want to be waiting 4 or 5 days for a response on your offer either. So it's, if I put an expiration, it's usually 48 hours, unless there's a reason for sooner. So let's just say house just went on the market today at 200,000, and I'm giving you 202 cash. I want an answer in 12 hours. You know, that kind of thing, because I'm going to try to prevent anybody else from getting in there. So that is a strategy. You know, like you can try to get for your buyer. But if it's just in general, maybe 24, you know, 24 is probably good because it does give them enough time to review, unless you're sending it on, you know, 10 a.m. on a Sunday, they're probably at church, whatever, with their family. They don't, a lender isn't open on Sunday, you know, and then they want an answer by 10 a.m. on Monday. It's like, give me a little bit of time on Monday morning to call the lender, that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, any other questions right now?
What are some other ways that you can encourage your buyer's offer to be accepted? What things can you put in your offer that would make it juicier for the seller to go that route? There's things you can do that aren't big money aspects, but things you can do that help out the offer better.
Well, one is free occupancy. You know, you can give them free occupancy, and if you're talking to your buyer, they're not paying their first payment anyways for over a month, bless you. So let's say you close on.
Did you guys hear that? That was important. Say that again. That's really important.
So let's say you're trying to make your offer better, and the seller wants 30 days occupancy. You could give them 30 days free occupancy. If you close on February 20th, you are not going to make your first payment until April 1st. Because you're paying all of your fronting when you get a mortgage, you pay a month in advance your interest, right? So your actual first payment isn't until 30 days, the first of the month after 30 days. So it's really not, they're not paying a mortgage payment for that first 30 days anyways, essentially. So you could do that. You could do like a partial appraisal waiver if they have the money. So I like to get these on my listings when you can. So let's say you have an offer, a house for $200,000, and you have multiple offers on it. Well, let's say you offer 205, or let's say you offer 200. We're not even overbidding now. If you're offering 200, you could do a $5,000 appraisal waiver. So the seller knows that as long as it appraises for 195, they're getting their 200 on the house from the buyer.
How would you spell that out? How would you write that in your buyer's offer, the appraisal waiver?
Well, first of all, your buyer has to understand that if it appraises for 195, they're bringing an extra $5,000 on top of their down payment. But if it appraises for 197, they're bringing $3,000 extra. So you want to limit their exposure, right? So you just don't want to say waiving appraisal unless they have unlimited funds and they really don't care. But I would say purchaser agrees to pay up to $5,000 over appraised value, not to exceed purchase price of $200,000. So up to that. You wouldn't pay more, but that would limit your exposure.
I've got a lot of deals that multiple offers accepted with that exact verbiage, exact verbiage. That's really powerful.
Because it's more of a guarantee that like, hey, I know I'm not that off on my pricing, so you're gonna get your 200 because we only need a 195 appraisal, that kind of thing. And sometimes I like to put that on an addendum that doesn't go to the lender yet, because I don't want the appraiser to think, oh, did they overprice the home? Is that why they're putting an appraisal waiver in there? Like, I don't want to give them more information. I'm not saying withhold it ultimately. You would give it to the lender after the appraisal comes in.
Stacey, I got a question. So what would you do in a multiple offer scenario when people are submitting offers, whether it's cash, conventional, FHA, but they're giving you a deadline of 24 to 48 hours, but you want to wait for other offers to come in? Would you put on the MLS like Wednesday at noon to receive all offers and to review it with seller? Highest and best.
If you want to do that strategy, if you think that that's the best strategy for your seller, like really the only time that is appropriate, in my opinion, is if you have one of those houses that is literally getting like 37 showings a day and you've got 7 offers in the first 12 hours. Then you have to put like a hard, fast deadline because you're going to continue to get offers, and that deadline is really just for your own seller. And at some point, you just have to cut it off. But if you're just trying to like draw it out to see if you're going to get more offers, I am not a proponent of that. I like to deal with what I have. Buyers buy on emotion. You're going to get your most serious buyers. You have the most control right at the beginning. So I try to get my sellers to just deal with what we have. We have a couple offers. You have a great house. You've got more showings coming down the line. Yes, that's the whole idea, is for you to continue to get showings. But we have a couple offers right now that are super serious. Let's look at them. So I try to get them done. We have a couple really, really good ones, because what ends up happening is you just start kind of reeling out of control, and then your seller starts to think they can get more things, and then you end up with nothing at the end. and then you piss off a buyer because now you're having to wait 7 days. Like, it's just, you know, I like to deal with like what we've got on hand.
And Stacy, what if your seller's like, well, can you wait a couple more days to see what comes in?
Yeah, you can wait. If like an offer comes in that's not attractive, then yeah, let's wait. Just say, no, we're waiting, we're not entertaining this offer, but at least let's respond. If you've already got a few offers and they're super great, I'd say you could, but you might, you know, deflate these other people. They might get upset. You know, they might lose excitement for them, and now you have the most control. So see what they want to do, like see what they want more than what they're, like you have a full price offer right here. What more do you want? You know, well, I want $5,000 more. Okay, well then let's counter it with $5,000 more. But that's why you would be holding out, because we have one right here to deal with. So.
But if you listed it at that price, you can't ask for more, can you?
Yes,
Oh,
you can.
Really?
We've got multiple offers on the table. My seller would accept the one at $5 grand more, you just have to play or not. I got 2 more calls. It's exactly why it's crazy.
Yeah. And I think again, like a lot of it has to go into getting along, like how you're dealing with the other agent. You're not a weak negotiator if you're, like, you want to get them on your team, the other agent. You don't want to fight with them. Now, if you get a real jerk, step off. You know, I'm going to squash you. But that's after they be a jerk. You know, at first, it's only going to make everything go smoother. Your inspection negotiations, everything is going to be so much better when you get along with an agent. Like, you know that one agent that we both had to deal with, that Peter touring guy?
Love him. He's great.
He's so great. He's a guy with Polo Maker. And we've had multiple deals with him. It was just like awesome because we could just talk candidly about things. We get things done. We're doing everything we can to make both of our clients happy. We're going to have a great closing. Everybody's going to be happy there at the closing. It's just going to be exactly what you want, to get more referrals and maintain good relationships.
That's the win-win situation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super, super important. So we can maybe talk more about that and then make sure I'm not forgetting anything that's super important. Make sure I answer all your questions. If you want to take a 5-minute break, then we'll reconvene, because I think we go till noon, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, 5-minute break.
Yes, I got it.
Come on, I'm like, I'm in class. Every time I'm late, she texts me. So you are not to say that I was late in this class.
No, she didn't ask me here.
When?
She just said, hey, thanks for leaving. I love Charlotte. Yeah, I think it was 9:30. Yeah, she was basically here too. No. 9:40. 9:15.
Now she's thinking I'm like,
why? You
hey, 2 minutes after I done it, she walked in.
Huh?
You better tell her.
What happened? Yeah.
Because I didn't.
I'm gonna text her like she didn't even come to class.
I did.
There's a great area. And most of the time we're going to try to avoid If push really came to shove, people can make a lawsuit about just about anything. You're just trying to cover your bases and have
I mean, it's going to so much money in lawsuits, almost never violate.
Yeah, basically, this
You'll get
weekend
the only person
already
who's lawsuits lawyers.
is
Right, I mean,
February 1st and
your client
2nd.
would have to hire an attorney, not you.
And then February 8th and 9th. Okay, so those 2 weekends, I usually do, you guys are, I usually do one to four, somewhere around there. I find that, and I've tested them for years, and late, doesn't really help.
Yes,
You're early.
So people are working till 5, 6,
Sorry.
they want to go.
Can you take a trip?
So,
I can't take a trip.
Saturdays are, you get the wife,
I guess it depends on what.
like you guys know, most of the time,
I'll try to keep out of it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna buy that. They're not gonna buy that. They're gonna get their emails and all of this, you know, even if
I think it's really there's a lot of weekends.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know.
yes, okay, so do we get that? So the February 1st and 2nd, February 8th and 9th, I need you guys, and then I need you.
There's 4 weekends in March. There's 7th and 8th, 14th and 15th, 21st and 22nd, 28th and 29th.
Yep. And then April, don't forget.
What were the March dates?
Okay, March is
7th and 8th,
7, 8, 14, 15.
21 and 22.
No, I need for me.
28 and 29.
Yeah. And then we're gonna go to April. We got April 4th and 5th, 11th and 12th, 18 and 19. I thought we back.
It's Easter.
Easter is
The first Sunday of April.
no, I think Easter.
It's different.
April 12th. Nobody's, don't even bother. Don't even bother that day.
Because I know the builders want the houses all the time.
So that's fine. Nobody's.
Yeah, we can work,
Okay, yeah.
something out. I have your phone number.
Yes, you do. I believe we both have.
And then Charles, I have a question.
Let me know what you want to do with that property then at that point.
You can ask she knows the originals, okay? My
Good there, thank you.
Okay, and I will give you some numbers.
Well, Bailey.
Let's just say, I'm gonna put a lot of brochures in them. And I have info boxes, that's what I need. I need the info boxes. We're gonna go over those, okay? And, I'd like the info boxes to have the information in there. So when you go there, just make sure that the info boxes have the brochures.
Right.
And then insect models. I had a site on
Do you, so when you're coming over to the house,
Equity spread is huge.
do you ever take those info sheets so that they come to you? I know you don't want to see what's happening. Because like, say for instance, on Digital, of course, I didn't listen to the intention with me because I was getting the only house. But now we have houses in the
They're all in there. Do you have any questions?
I would love
You know, I mean, you can ask me questions. So are you well, this is beautiful, but okay, I understand. What is it? Do you mind if I jot some things down and? And I think we're doing it. You know, take a look at it. If you'd like to see it,
That's one of my questions. Do you have a realtor?
At least
5 from 60.
Right? At least. Get one. How about that?
I
One.
have a realtor.
Right? That's what.
How did you guys open house yesterday?
It was busy. It was busy. It was.
And I know
Yeah, it was
them
busy.
too.
This
So
was
who
funny.
I'm talking to.
Non-stop too.
This is Peter's brothers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so did they do renovations? Did they look
They
at
did all renovations. I'll show you. It's pretty nice though.
This house had like a fire damage. I remember that.
That's why. So once they got
Insurance.
they did the whole house, which is the smartest thing.
Oh yeah.
I'll send it to
Insurance
you.
doesn't give you the money unless you have contract or an estimate to just fix it and clean it up. That's what I did before.
Yeah.
And I know Marquita asked me for a quote for that. I was still working with restoration company on that fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I sent it to you as well. No, really nice house. Nice neighborhood too.
And that's the thing about it, when it's like, when it shows nice like that, I mean,
Yeah.
but they have, some people like that type of, but yeah, when the inside shows this nice, I'm sure that you guys will
Oh yeah.
love that backsplash.
We didn't have anybody.
Is it too high?
No, it was actually priced right. The clients were. No, they meant like with us.
Oh,
And they had a wood back. And they had a wood back. How about I tell you, it's original hardwood. We finished it.
No way.
Paint was perfect. Oh, they did a whole thing.
Love that pink color,
Yeah.
color, everything. Look at that added.
The one thing I would have done differently, they have this room where once you walk in, the stairs to go like upstairs to the bedrooms, then you can go to the kitchen. So you can either make a walk to the kitchen or walk to this room, and the smaller like living rooms, right? Because they have the great room that's so kind of living area. This room guides you to two places. Outside, there's two sliding doors to go outside, like to the backyard. And then another one is to go to the basement. Carpet there. I would rip the chandelier and let it be a dining room. God, they don't have a dining room.
This one, no, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I was giving people that like, that were thinking about it. I said, hey, this is what I would do. This is what I would do. Yeah, because people kept saying, is this an extra room? I said, no, 3 are upstairs, But I kept saying, hey, this is what I would do, Just to kind of give them an idea. There was a couple that really made for
Oh, I heard this.
They were there. I met
Oh, pardon?
I didn't really get the full details, but they were asking me like, how are we looking? I said, look around you. Right? I said, have you guys already been? Well, make sure you might be in a there could be a strong possibility, right? I said, so just be prepared. I said, then go from there. Then, be prepared. I said, don't worry. I said, don't worry. I said, it's meant for you. You know what I mean? I was like, newlyweds. And they brought their younger sister, she was there too. I was like, give me some, like, what do you guys think? So, there's a lot of action. There was a ton.
I know, I was standing there and then.
Told you.
Everybody came.
Yeah, from 12 to 3 we were nuts. But at the, we were from 4, 30. And then I ended up getting, my guns. At the open house, and I knew I didn't have a future. So I just said, and I just said, hang tight a little bit. Let me get everybody out and we'll talk. No, he didn't. Do an inspection tomorrow.
Get back into it so people can get out of minutes early. That's full information on that.
Which
I was like, we get out.
and stuff, and I'm thinking about my listing it in Grosse Pointe and I can't. It's still. Like what I know, the 190 is
Going back
and then look at it.
Seller disclosure statement, because I've had this happen to me several occasions, unfortunately, where I go online and I look it up, and I get it, never lived in the property, it's been a rental, or a guy just bought it 4 months ago, that kind of stuff, and it's not filled out properly.
Yeah.
I'll put in there without disclosures, I call the agent and said, the seller really needs to fill this out because they're required by law to, because they are the owner of the property.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I get them coming back and says, this is what the seller's putting down, you're not gonna take it.
Yeah. Well,
I've talked with Doug about this, and they said, well, you can't really force the seller to do something if they don't want to, but if I'm representing the buyer, I inform my client that I've done what I could here, and I have them sign some sort of paper
hold harmless or
that
something.
I try to, get the seller to fill it out. It's like me.
So, I thought I remembered in class that the buyer can actually back out within 72 hours.
The buyer can back out date closing, so that's a check mark in the PA doesn't have the date, or you don't write it.
Like, on the disclosures.
I understand.
That's what I'm
They have to
understanding.
see disclosures. Go ahead, talk about that.
I don't know, this is getting into more legal aspect stuff. There's not a 72-hour rule.
Oh, I thought I remembered that.
Not in Michigan.
No, I was talking about the class here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess if you put the time frame on there, if there's a time frame stated that they could, you might be talking about like association bylaws. I don't know about any 72-hour thing. I've never heard of that. I mean, there's a due diligence time frame. They can back out during the due diligence time frame.
Right.
Probably you're talking about a contingency.
Yeah.
Well, that's lifting the contingency, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, contingency is 72-hour a lot of times, but no, I don't know of any that has to do with the seller disclosure. As far as incomplete documents and being allowed to back out, there's so many loopholes and gray areas, and it all comes down to a mess. We just want to try to position our clients to remain in contract, know what they're signing, be very definitive about things, and, if they decide, technically, if the home isn't clean and free of personal property, they don't have to close in they won't be exposed for losing their deposit. I mean, they're just a lot of little things, what ifs, and interpretation of the contract are all different. I just try to, again, encourage my clients to remain in contract, not expose themselves, and that's about all we can do in that. Getting them to sign up hold harmless, Lou, probably a good idea if they didn't, if you couldn't get the seller to complete the seller disclosure and they still want to buy the home. Just something that says, hey, I've attempted several times to get it completely filled out to state requirements. The seller has declined. Purchaser still wants to proceed with sale. Just have them sign it.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, something like that. That's what I would do. But it's good, like it's a good segue, because one of the things I started here, just a couple of things that we didn't go over yet, is reiterating the terms of the contract. Whatever you are having your client sign, making sure they understand what they're signing, because at the end of the day, they can always claim ignorance as a consumer, unless you are very, very detailed when you're going over with them and making sure that they understand and explain it. If they don't know, they can always claim, I didn't know that. I know I signed it, but I didn't know that. It was never explained to me that way. So you're just trying to limit your, liability in that instance.
When you have a client, do you go over these contracts with them word for word, face to face?
Paragraph by paragraph. I wouldn't say word for word. But that's actually an important point to bring up. You have to know the contracts. If you're going to be able to explain it to the client, you need to practice it like dozens of times. Practice it to your other colleagues. Practice it to your family. You don't want to be practicing on clients. And if they ask you a question about something, you ought to know how to answer it. So yes, we go over it. I go over all the contracts paragraph by paragraph. So I paraphrase what they're signing, but if they have a question, we can always go back. So just know your stuff.
Actually, speaking, I had a question yesterday. It's the first time someone's ever asked me this. What is a limited service buyer agency? I know what the listing one is.
Yeah.
On the disclosure, it says limited service buyer agent. And I was like, I'll have to find out for you because I've never experienced that.
I don't really know.
I know it's a checkbox on the disclosure. I just don't know what it is.
I think it would be like the same thing as a listing agent limited service, like I'm more like an a la carte person. So they might not pull comps for them, or they might only write a contract. I think they're more a la carte their services, not being full like we are. That's probably my best guess, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to look up. Yeah.
I don't like those companies that be on the listing side where they just put out MLS, but they don't do open houses.
Yeah, or they just open a door. They might just be like a door opener.
Yeah.
And the people write their own contract. I don't really know. Yeah. Never had one limited service buyer agent before.
Redfin does.
Okay. Yeah.
They pay so much just for you to, like you said.
Yeah. So the importance of reiterating is because you don't want to be in the middle of negotiations and then your buyer or your seller are like, oh wait, what about this? Oh wait, I also forgot to ask for that. Oh wait, even though they just agreed, now I want this. That, causes mistrust now in the whole process. If you change your mind or you keep adding things in after, it's not going to go well with the co-op agent, that's for sure. If we're in an agreement with something and we're just getting paperwork signed and then you come back and you say you want something else on top of it, it just doesn't go well. So you want to make sure you completely reiterate what the deal is for your client so that you don't have those, I think they call them nibblers.
Yeah, it's a good section of the book about nibbling.
Yeah.
It's in this chapter, you can check it out.
Yeah. So that is not a tactic that I recommend. I think even in the book it says nibble back, but I wouldn't nibble back. I just cut off the nibbling altogether. It's in the book.
It's actually page
almost off at the very end and like wanting to, I mean, I had.
Oh, yeah.
Where, they chose, they didn't want to do an inspection. And the people who did own the house, they were deceased, so I was selling the house for, I didn't know if there was water on the place, and they never lived there, the person was deceased. Well, we were getting tons and tons and tons of rain, and they went and did the final walkthrough, and there was water in the basement, and like 24 hours before closing, we almost lost the whole deal.
Yeah.
We got it through, thank God, but it was just like, oh my gosh.
Well, that can happen with any situation, like, if something can present itself in the pending process, right? So, I mean, that's why they have that clause risk of loss in there, because you have to tell your seller, keep your insurance on the property until after we close, because if it burns down in a fire or gets whisked away by a tornado, that's on you still until you close on this property. So anything, you know, basements have leaked, electrical has gone haywire. I mean, when they're accepting the offer, they have to keep the property in the same condition as when they're, you know, accepting the offer. So if anything happens, they have to fix it, you know, or address it at least. So
You have to change your disclosures too.
Yep. Yep.
Most people say that.
What else? Oh, okay. So another tactic that I use for getting buy-in from your client in order to get their property sold, because a lot of, again, most of the time it's all for their own good. You're not going to advise them to accept a deal that's bad for them, right? But they might not feel all warm and fuzzy inside about the deal because it's not their ideal offer. But you know that's what it's going to come down to, and if they don't take what they've got on the table now, they're going to end up in a worse spot. So you're actually saving them from losing money. You really kind of have to shift your mindset around, you know, how you're helping them. So what I do is I identify with them, right? So a lot of times I'll say, if it were me, or if this was my house, this is what I would do. Or if you were my best friend, you were my sister, I identify them with, you don't have to, like, I'm kind of like pushing them to the side, saying, you know, this has nothing to do with you type thing, even though it has everything to do with them. I say, if you were my best friend, this is what I would tell you to do. Or if this were my house, this is what I would do. So that has really helped me. Just that small little tactic has helped me get offers accepted, pricing, listings properly from the gate. You know, if they want to list for a higher price than what I want them to list for, and so you could certainly do that. But if this were my house, I would list it here, and here's why. Just kind of personalizes it, makes them feel like you're together with them. A lot of times I'll use examples. You might not have these yet, but I'll use examples of how things went when I did help my most trusting clients. So instead of saying, when you trust me, things go right. You know, you don't want to say that to somebody because that comes off a different way. But I'll give an example of when I sold my best friend's house. So it's a true story. I sold my best friend's house in May, this past May. We had 8 offers. We got free occupancy and an appraisal waiver and an overbid. And it all went perfectly because she literally listened to everything that I said. She staged the house how we recommended. She did the repairs that I recommended. She opened the showing schedule how I recommended. She got her pet out. She got rid of all pet, like evidence of a pet. She priced it exactly where I said. Every single thing I said to do, she did. And that's the type of result she got. I'm not saying you have to do everything I say I'm going to do. All I'm telling you is that is a real life example of somebody listening to every single suggestion as a professional and the type of result they got. The same thing with my sister. When I helped my sister buy a home, you know, we positioned her offer exactly like I suggested, and she ended up getting her house. So it's just a way of like kind of getting them to do what you say to do without saying, you have to do what I'm telling you. I use that a lot, where you're like taking yourself out of it and making them feel like your family. You know, if you were my best friend, or if it were me, you know, I use that a lot on pricing and listings. Like, if this were my house, this is where I would be listing it at.
Do you have any checklists that you use for all these items?
For offer negotiations?
For anything, from taking a person like me, a beginner, from first meeting a customer, making them a client, closing, all the steps.
Yes, we have very detailed checklists.
You give those out to people?
It's all on a computer. It's all through our system on Brivity that we utilize. So it's our CRM, and it has it all in there. But there are forms, there are checklists that, like, I could, if you email me, I have generalized checklists. They're not my personal ones, because like I said, it's all in my CRM that I could forward you.
Now, the CRM, that's a company you pay for, right?
Yes.
That's a service.
Yes, but Command does the same thing. You should be able to set it all up in Command.
Okay.
Yep. Command is very, very capable. I mean, and it's going to continue to get better over time. So you should definitely go to all the Command training, do all the tutorials with Command and everything. And they'll have all of that step by step in it. Does Command have checklists in it? Yeah. You can get your checklist right from Command. And it will be very personalized to Keller Williams Lakeside, like what they require when you turn in a deal and everything too. Yeah. Cool. What else did we want to go over? Oh, confidence and contingencies, right? Those were the two additional things I had down here. So contingencies, just again, know your stuff. Like, if they have to sell a home in order to close on the new one, you have to put that in there. Otherwise, you're exposing your client, right? Ours is very straightforward. Our PA either is contingent upon selling another home or is not contingent. So, like, you can't hide it. But when you're the listing agent, a lot of those purchase agreements do not have that clause in there. So you need to ask, do they need to sell another home? A lot of times the lender won't even put it on their pre-approval. You have to find out if they have to close on another home in order to buy your listing, right? And if they do, then you can do a contingency if you want. Any questions on contingencies? Okay. And then confidence. So how do you get confidence with other agents when you're newer, or just confidence in general? You were asking.
Well, I don't know, like, I think, like, sometimes when I was, like, negotiating with other agents, I felt like they had so much more experience. I felt, like, a little intimidated.
Okay. Well, I mean, a lot of it is depending on who you're dealing with on the other end.
Yeah, there's been some.
Like Nicole was saying, there's some bullies out there.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
beasts.
But, yeah. Don't let them be bullies. Get your stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the more prepared you are, is going to help your confidence level. If you have all of your forms filled out correctly, that's an indication to the co-op agent you know what you're doing because you're filling out all the forms correctly. If you've done the comps, you have the comps there, so now you have a good grasp on the value. I would just say, you know, be respectful of the other agent, but yet more firm. Knowing your stuff is going to be the most important thing. Like, if the other agent is trying to do a negotiation and not putting it in writing, and doesn't think it's important to have an addendum around that, then you know that's not right. So you need to be able to call them out on it and say, well, anything that we do has to be in writing. You know, get them to do that. I had one like on a buyer. Nick, this was the one that we were dealing with Denise. Okay, so we had a home inspection, and we'll talk about this too. We ended up getting a $2,000 concession for something that we found in the home inspection. But I know they had other offers, so I didn't want to do a dissatisfaction, because then they could have just declined it and accepted the other offer. So I just did a general addendum for the concession, but I was still giving her notice. right? That they wanted the concession. But I made sure that my clients still wanted the house, even if they weren't gonna agree to the concession. Otherwise, I would have had to do a dissatisfaction or word it a different way. So I got agreement from the other side that they would do this concession. I'm like, great. She says, well, can you give me a satisfaction of inspection? He won't sign the $2,000 concession unless you give him a satisfaction of inspection. She wanted me to get my clients to sign the satisfaction of inspection and send that over before I got her person to agree to, before I got in writing this $2,000 concession. I'm like, that's not happening, girl. Well, we never got in a fight about it. She was pretty firm about it. And what I ended up doing was I put the concession, I wrote a new addendum, I put the concession in the addendum. I said, this satisfies the inspection period. All other terms and conditions remain in effect. So basically, if they were signing that, they were getting a 2-for-1. You're getting the concession and the satisfactory inspection all at one time. And then I sent that over to her, and she ended up getting her person to sign it. So I don't think she was trying to pull a fast one. I just think she wanted to know that we weren't going to try to come back and renegotiate something else, truly. But I could have exposed my client if I would have done that. So it's just knowing your stuff. That's what it means by keeping your client's best interest at the forefront. Making sure that you're not getting them in trouble, essentially.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I would really suggest, I think we all do, is just reviewing and reviewing and reviewing, because whatever offer, whatever words, whatever thing, I think that's huge, because you get super excited and then you have to kind of tiptoe back, and that's not fun.
What do you mean by reviewing and reviewing and reviewing?
Reviewing your documents, so reviewing all the documents that you're sending your PA, like our buyers, like as buyers, your PA is reviewed, like we have to review it before we send it over. There's so many times where you're just missing one little thing that makes a huge impact, but you don't think about it because emotionally you're excited, but on experience, that's where it has to be what you're talking about.
So what Nikki's suggesting is maybe having a second pair of eyes on your offers before you send them over for your clients to sign. So we have a checks and balances thing on our team that 99% of the time somebody else is reviewing the document for whoever's sending the offer over or receiving the offer before we get full signature on it. Because I have Amanda check mine. Chris sends it most of the time to Amanda, just so that, there's been times where I completely didn't notice something, or I'm running, and she's like, in this agreement there's a level, because she's very, I'm like, there was, so it helps to get a second pair of eyes.
Slow your emotions down.
Yeah.
You get super excited, or you're wrapped up into another deal. That even though when you think of an offer, I think that's what I've learned in the time I've been on with them is just like slow your roll, chick, because there's a lot of times currently just.
Well, as salespeople, our natural personality is not to be detail oriented, it's to sell. But when you're dealing with the largest investment in most people's lives and the number 2 field of lawsuits in the world, second to medical, we definitely need to make sure that we're being accurate on our paperwork. So confidence is going to come from accuracy, being prepared, developing a rapport with the other agent up front. I bet you 9 times out of 10 they'll welcome a good rapport, because as I was saying before, it just seems that we have automatic standoffs the moment. And you're not going to get a whole lot of offers accepted that way with good agents too. But when I get an agent that is rubbing me the wrong way right out of the gate, I'm like, I'm not going to be in your corner, dude. I pray for another offer to be sent over, because I can't wait to fling them to the side if they're being a jerk. I'm sorry, we got another offer. better, you know, that kind of thing. But otherwise, if it's not, you have to deal with that agent and just try to, you know, most of the time do their job too. You know, it's just part of it. Never gonna get away from, you know, you're doing the other agent's job too. So, any other questions before we pretty much wrap up here?
When someone does ask for concessions, do you counter back with your listing agent that commissions won't be paid on concessions, or?
You know what, we can't do that. That's another Keller Williams Lakeside thing.
That's actually board.
Oh, could be board. Yeah, we can't do that now. It used to be super popular, but you can decide. Let's say that it's your listing, and you get an offer with concessions. You can decide to not get paid on your 3% side as the listing agent, but you cannot ask another agent to only get paid on the net.
You'll see a lot, but it's not something you can enforce. At least on the buyer search.
Yeah, that recently changed.
Yeah.
Okay, I do know.
Yeah.
Back to the Yeah, commission on
Commission on concessions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't even bring that up with the sellers. Like before, I used to bring it up when we would adjust. You know, like don't worry, you won't be paying commission on this $5,000 concession. But now I just don't even say anything.
I had one person get mad at me though,
Me
because
too.
they had to pay for commission on the concessions.
And ultimately, though, how much is it? If it's $25 or $95, I just take the hit to so that my client isn't upset.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't have the other agent take the hit.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Are you saying that that has to be specified, like on the MLS or something?
It won't be because you can't negotiate it anymore.
On the buyer side, you could do your own.
Commissions are based on the sales price, not the concession and after sales price.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So people used to do that, but they changed the rule. So I just don't even mention it anymore.
So wait a minute, what are you saying, Stacy? That
So let
your commission is based off of
Sale price.
Sale price.
So if it's a $200,000 offer with a $5,000 concession, you are paying commissions on $200,000.
Okay.
Yes. What she was asking was, would you specify that you're only getting paid on $195? You know, in that regard, which people used to do all the time.
Right, so if it's their buyer asking for the concession, you know, then why should our seller have to pay the full commissions for both of us?
I
Like,
see.
they're not even paying that full amount.
I see.
That makes sense, but, yeah, that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
You can't
So you
negotiate
can call
that.
out
No.
before my seller.
Yeah.
That's a board issue. That's not an office
Oh, you
issue.
can't negotiate that.
Yeah, not for
You
the other
couldn't
side.
negotiate
You could
yours.
do it on yours if you have like somebody that would get upset about it. Yeah.
For $80, $90, they were having a client test out doing referrals for, so you
Yeah.
know, get what's better for your business.
Right. Cool. Well, hey, I hope it was helpful. And get out there and get some deals negotiated.